the September 9th of Carson City School Board. Ron, would you lead us in the flag salute? Moving to number 2, adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Going on to number 3, superintendent's report. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, audience. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I would like to begin my report this evening by introducing the principal at Fremont Elementary. Mrs. Casey Gillis is here, and we have a special member of our staff, Karen Schaefer, who is also here, and she has accomplished an outcome that we would really like to tell you about, and so turn the time over to Mrs. Gillis.
I just want to show you these while I'm talking. Good evening. This is a real pleasure tonight. Our district is known for taking the time to look at the accomplishments of our students and our staff. And tonight I have what I think is a real accomplishment and achievement for a person that I care a lot about. Mrs. Karen Schaefer is here with me tonight. I've known Karen for way too many years. I had the pleasure of teaching her daughter Christy when I was at Seeliger, and I was teaching first and second. So I got to know her as a parent and knew what kind of effective parent and involved parent support for the school system. Then a few years later, I had the pleasure of being able to hire her at Fremont as one of our SFA tutors. And I got to see that the same talent she had with her family, she brought to our school, and her ability to work with the struggling students who needed a little extra help, to make that connection to where they felt comfortable with Mrs. Schaefer, and really made great strides. And we thought, we're thinking this is a great thing. And then next thing we know, our reading program, the SFA Foundation, solicited authors to write children's books. And Karen took advantage of that and wrote, you have 2 of her books in front of you, and lo and behold, last spring we found out that they had accepted and were publishing her stories. We just saw them this fall, so I wanted to share them with you, and I know that there are 2 more stories that are in the works to be published. So I just thought it would be so nice to let you know what our staff is doing. And now I'm going to let Karen answer any questions you have.
Thank you. I'm not sure you'll have any questions. Casey covered all the bases, but if anybody's curious about anything.
Well, your books look great, and I was wondering why you were here at the board meeting, because I thought, gosh, is Keith really going to bring his wife to the board meeting for a date? I had no idea that you were together.
He really is the reason I'm here. He took this little private fun thing I was doing and sort of channeled it public, which
it's a great thing.
I could have lived without.
It's awesome.
Thank you for having
me. It's very
neat.
So just because you piqued my interest, I noticed as I'm reading this that you've got "high" in all caps throughout it. What's the? Am I tasking your memory a little?
No, there was some editing that I submitted my work and they came back with some suggestions and I came back with my thoughts and this is the way it ended up. So not everything was. I can't remember if I put that in there or not, but
yeah, I'm just curious what the reason. Okay. No, neat looking book.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
This is great. Congratulations. What
Thanks.
an honor.
Thanks.
We look forward to the next 2, too.
Well, actually, this was about 2 years ago that this happen, and I didn't actually see them until now, but I think now they've got the program where they want it, and maybe the next ones won't take as long. I don't know, but it's been fun, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So just to add a little bit to this whole event, the books that you have in front of you are actually published by SFA, and so any school that has SFA as part of their program will have Mrs. Schaefer's books available to them and will be used as part of that reading curriculum. So congratulations, and we're glad that you're part of our staff. Thank you for your work. Next, Madam President, members of the board, I'd also like to let you know that coming up, we will be having some parent information nights for our elementary students, where we will be rolling out our one-to-one mobile device initiative. So for parents who have students in grades 3 through 5, I can give you the following information. At Fremont Elementary on September the 18th, that event will be from 6 until 7 p.m. At Fritz Elementary on September the 23rd, that event will occur from 5:30 to 6:30, and at Mark Twain Elementary on September 24th, 5:30 to 6:30. And so 3 schools right now have been scheduled for this information night, and we would like to invite parents who may have students attending those sites to please put those dates and times on their calendar. In partnership with Carson City Health and Human Services, we will be having our flu clinics, and we have Sandy Wortgow here with us to speak about this a little bit later, but we want to let our parents know that in October we will have some additional information for our flu clinics. On Monday, September the 15th is Professional Development Day for staff, and so there will be no students in school on that day. Friday, September the 12th is our official count day, and we'll have an update on that obviously after the fact, and I'll contact board members specifically, but we'll have a public information available at our September 23rd meeting. And then finally, for the public, and also just as a reminder, we will have a school board workshop on Thursday, September the 11th, and that will be not in this room, but up at our district office, which is 1402 West King Street, and will begin at 5:15 p.m. in our boardroom. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Going on to board reports. We'll start with Pioneer High. Kaylee, welcome. So glad to have you here for your first meeting.
Thanks. Okay, so we had our first blood drive today, and we thank you for the members of the community, students and staff who participated. We turned in 18 units, which is our second in record. And on September 17th, we have our open house from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on campus. So yeah, and then student photos were taken today, and senior portraits will be this Friday on September 12th. And then we'd like to give congratulations to PHS student leadership. Would like to congratulate science teacher Mr. Tony Brown for being nominated as the PHS Rotary Staff of the Year. We would like to congratulate our student advisors and staff who completed the Project Discovery Rock Creek Expedition. Congratulations go to Bradley Moose, Cooper Van Worth, Eduardo Caro, Robbie Gorder, Brittany Sisson, Savannah Pimentel, Miguel Calderon, Julie Alberter, Nick Manza, Sergio Malgoza, and Christian Zebnik. We would like to also congratulate PHS student Brianna Rotter for earning her academic Letterman jacket. She has successfully completed several college courses as a PHS student, and she can graduate early. And Pioneer students would like to thank our neighbor in the community, Miss Paula Cannon, for her kind gestures of the year. Miss Cannon lives near PHS and has contributed to the safe graduation night with donations. She also came by the campus and delivered candy to staff on the first day of school. The Pioneer student body would like to congratulate Nate Hammock. He is also in the Jumpstart College program representing PHS as one of the high school as one of the only high school juniors to be in this program. Yeah, so thank you. This concludes the activities, events, and announcements for Pioneer High School.
That's great. Thank you so much. On to Carson High, Jake.
So first and foremost, the tennis team. We had our first match of any sport against Douglas High School today, and the boys tennis team won. We didn't just win, we destroyed Douglas, so it was a good day. Tomorrow, September 10th, there's a student council meeting at 2 o'clock in the library. That is a public meeting. We would like to emphasize public this year because we have not had any attendance by students or staff in the recent years, and we need to get our student council meetings going. Thursday, September 11th, there is girls golf at Genoa Resort Golf Course in Gardnerville at 11 a.m. There is also tennis, boys and girls, against Galena High School at 3 p.m. Friday, September 12th is varsity football at North Valleys at 7 p.m. The Saturday, September 13th ACT test has been moved from Carson High School to Douglas High School. And also on Saturday, there is a HOSA fundraiser. It's a car wash from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the front lawn. So come support our HOSA club as they need as much money as they can to support all their officers and all their students who compete every single year in state and nationals. There's a cross-country meet in California at 10 a.m. And then there's also girls varsity soccer against Spanish Springs at home at 11 a.m. Monday, September 15th, as Mr. Stokes said, is a professional development day. Tuesday, September 16th, we have girls golf at Arrow Creek Golf Course in Reno at 11 a.m., tennis versus Reed at 3 p.m., varsity volleyball against Spanish Springs at 6 p.m., and varsity girls soccer against Hug at 7 p.m. Wednesday, the 17th, is boys varsity soccer versus Hug at 7 p.m. Thursday, September 18th is another cross-country meet. This one's at Galena Creek up in Reno at 3 p.m. And there's also tennis at Hug at 3 p.m. And there is varsity volleyball against Hug again at 6 p.m. Friday, September 19th, we have varsity football against Spanish Springs at 7 p.m. Come support your Senators. We need all the support we can get. It's not toga night, Mr. Stokes. Saturday, September 20th, we have a Drive One for Your School fundraiser from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. put on by Ford, and that is to support our basketball teams. There is varsity boys soccer against North Valleys at 11 a.m., varsity girls soccer against North Valleys at 1 p.m. Monday, September 21st is an early out, and then Tuesday, September 22nd is tennis against Reno at 3 p.m. and varsity volleyball against North Valleys at 6 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jake. And yes, it's always a good day when you can beat Douglas, and if you can really kill him, it's even a better day. So thank you for that. Made my day. On to Candace. Steve?
There's just a book of stuff going on at Fremont right now, and to be honest with you, I left it at my desk at work. Casey, did you find the list? Great. We'll invite you forward to cover because it's a book.
Because I did it quickly.
It's always good to have a backup, Steve.
And I hope I remember everything, because a lot has been going on. Back in August, we had record attendance of our families for our PTA back-to-school barbecue. We had a parent information night where we held our annual Title I meeting with parents, talked about school performance, our goals for this year, and then parents went to classrooms to hear the individual teachers. We want to thank our community partners, the Seroptimus Club and City National Bank. Both organizations donated backpacks. City National came with 4 cartons. They're gone, and most of the Seroptimus backpacks are gone, and our parents and students were just thrilled, so we thank them for that. Also, the City National Bank is coming next Thursday, and during the school day, and have an assembly for our 5th graders, their dollars and cents program to talk to students about financial things and starting savings accounts and just how to deal with money and credit and all of that. And we've had them before, and when I mentioned it to our teachers, they were thrilled to have them back. It is a really good program, and we appreciate the City National will do that with us. Also next week, on Tuesday the 16th at 5:30, we are having Pizza for Pops, which is our introduction to start the Dads of Great Students programs. We talked to the people at Fritch and got a lot of good ideas, and I want to thank our parent, Mr. Nate Harrison, who is spearheading and will be our person to run it, and we will be up and running after the meeting on Tuesday night. Then on Thursday night at 6 o'clock, we'll be having a parent information night on the one-to-one mobile program for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade parents. Also on Friday the 19th, the PTA-sponsored jogathon. And to be honest, beyond that, I couldn't remember. But I think that's enough, so thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Good job, Steve.
Lynette.
All right, for Board of Wick, student enrollment has increased, so now there are 5 kindergarten classes instead of 4, and so Mrs. Sims would like to show her appreciation for Mrs. Barnett, who agreed to become the 5th grade teacher. I think she just did that on a fly, and she's been very appreciative. Open house is tomorrow night. Kindergarten through 2nd grade is at 5:30 to 6:30, and grades 3 to 5 are at 6:30 to 7:30. Our family movie night is September 19th at 6 p.m. And I also received an email from Mr. Cornick regarding the Help Keep Bordewick Bray Clean, Green, and Healthy event. This is Friday, September 26th. It's hosted by Miss Britt. Miss Britt has a green team club at the school, which is great. They do all kinds of environmental activities. They have a garden, and she's the one that's actually hosting this, but the whole idea is just to kind of improve Bordewick and tidy it up. So that is Bordewick Bray. Mark Twain, I have not heard back yet from the principal. Carson High School, I just wanted to say the open house was great, even though I'm not the representative for Carson High. Saw Mrs. Kima there, and the thing that I was most excited about, and I think Mr. Stokes had mentioned this too in his weekly update, is Mrs. Busan wants to do a donuts with the principal, excuse me, and I think that's awesome, so I'm very excited about that, and that concludes my report.
Hopefully that'll work with the wellness policy, but. Just kidding.
Multi-grain donuts.
It came from the wellness committee Monday morning. We were talking about all the bad things. Laurel.
Yes, my report for Fritch. Last week they had an ice cream social hosted by the PTA. They served nearly 500 bowls of ice cream, and so they'd like to give a big thank you to the PTA for hosting that event.
Again, gluten-free?
Yeah, no, not gluten-free. There were toppings too. But brings a lot of families to the school. They also last week had the 1st through 5th grade back-to-school parent nights, and those were well attended as well. As Mr. Stokes has already mentioned, Tuesday, September 23rd is the parent information night on the laptops from 5:30 to 6:30, and Friday, September 26th is Picture Day. One other thing that Mr. Walker mentioned is that they are in need of some volunteers to help out during the lunchtime hours. So if you have been fingerprinted by the school district and are interested in coming to help out with your student at the lunchtime, you can contact Mr. Walker and do that. The Early Childhood Center is currently implementing Curiosity Corner, their SFA curriculum, and they would like to welcome Mrs. Karen Bianchi, who is their transfer teacher from the high school. They had their back-to-school night last week, and over 40 of their families attended. And last weekend was also their first parent university, and they had 17 families that attended. Their next parent university, they're hoping to pilot another portion of the Hannon program for students with autism, and they've applied for that because the pilot is free, and so they will report back to the board and let us know if they have qualified for that. And also, they wanted to let us know that 100% of their parents have updated their student information online. So,
Wow.
congratulations to them.
That's good.
Very good.
Joe.
For Carson High School,
On September 11th, the Climbing Club has a mandatory meeting. So if you're interested, it's lunchtime in Mr. Mitel's room, room 213. And also on the 11th of September, if you're interested in a trip to Italy, there's information pickup packet in room 228. Boy, I'm interested in that. I don't know if they'll let me go. On the 13th, Jake had mentioned they host a car wash. I'll just add that it's $3 advanced sale tickets and $5 that day. On the 17th, they're titling it Pie and Administrator. You get to throw a pie in the face of either Mr. Rodina, Mr. Chambers, or Mrs. Fusion. And I don't have anything against either of them, but if memory serves, I wouldn't have minded doing that when I was a kid. So I think that sounds like fun. Good for them for being good sports. But you can buy a raffle ticket from the Link Crew for $1, $1 each, or you can get 6 tickets for $5. And on the 20th, UNR, College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources are having a field day. And it's a chance for you to explore academic careers, meet the faculty and students, and again, get a feel for maybe what college might be like for you. And RSVP for that is required. You can get information at the office. What did I miss? Skills USA is on the 17th. They're having a meeting at lunch in the culinary restaurant. So if you're part of Skills USA or want to be a part of it, attend that meeting. And then on the 29th of September, there's not a whole lot going on in September apparently, lip sync auditions. So for those of you like me who can't really sing, you could lip sync. And it's 2 p.m. in the upstairs cafeteria. The auditions can exceed 4 minutes in length, and you can have up to but no more than 6 people in your group. Just a reminder for everybody, math tutoring is available every day except during early outs. Room 223, and that's from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Open house at the high school, I attended that as well, and it went really well. I've had 2 of my kids going through the high school, and it seems like the older they get, the fewer parents you see at some of the, the senior level classes. And I would just encourage the parents of seniors to try to be involved. It's amazing how much these kids have to do. They have their normal schoolwork, all the activities they're in, and they have their senior project, and they have a lot going on. And the more you can support them and encourage them, I think the more prepared they're going to be for those days after high school. Carson Middle School, just a quick update. There's a PTA meeting Thursday at 3:30 in the library. So if you're interested in being a part of PTA or you're curious, what's going on, we encourage you to attend. And then the middle school cross-country team got to compete at Wattell High School last week, Friday. And that was great. Mr. Wallace was there. I had a chance to be there and cheer the kids on. I've been spending a lot of time at the high school, watching the high school kids and helping train them, but it's kind of a kick to go back to the middle school. And boy, there's a lot of kids that are just working hard, and that was not an easy course for their first race. But I wanted to congratulate those kids at all the schools for a job well done, and that includes my report.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just going to report very quickly on the status of the Carson City School District Foundation. Now, Richard and Valerie did a tremendous job again. The meeting was held last week. And just to refresh your memory, the foundation first came into existence, I believe, in 2002, had never really been activated. But now it's time to activate it, to provide resources for programs and projects that we are unable to fund through the general fund or through grants. At that meeting, Mr. Stokes had appointed Ian Hill as the chair of the foundation committee. Now, if you haven't met Ian, you missed something. This guy is just, let's do it now and get the right people involved. So from there, there's going to be the board of directors that have to be fully appointed. Ian would be one, and maybe a couple more have possibly, come on. Right now, the foundation, we as board members are actually listed legally as members of this Carson City Foundation. But under the advice of Mr. Pavlakis, we're not going to be as board members of a foundation. However, what the chair, Ian Hill, stated is that the board is still to be accountable to us as a board. So they can't just be a rogue organization going off and doing a lot of things. That was his suggestion, and we'll work out all the legal details of that. What was interesting is Ian Hill's approach, and similar to the strategic plan, the first thing is to align all of Carson City. And he gave examples of how a community can be not aligned and going in different directions. And with education, it's all going forward, because education in any community actually defines the community. And he's, got all of this going, and all this will come to be. And then, in the meantime, his wife, Gina Hill, so we actually have Team Hill, has already prepared or created a video, a 1-minute video, using the strategic plan as a guide as to moving forward with the foundation. And I think maybe the next meeting we'll take a look at that video. I mean, things are moving. So I don't know when the next meeting has been established, but things are moving. And with that objective, with a community in alignment, the resources for programs and projects that we can't rely on state funding or grants, the community steps up and helps provide that for the students in our community. And Madam President, that's my report.
Thank you, Ron. I have a couple things from Empire. September 13th from 1 to 4 o'clock is the 25th anniversary celebration with a family barbecue. There'll be music and food and vendors. And then September 23rd, the PTA meeting. Meeting will be electing new board and finalizing the year's events. So it doesn't give me a time, but I'm sure if you call the office, you can find out what time. I guess brought up the donut thing because I went to the wellness committee at Carson High, and so that they were talking about how we need to start working on a policy, and that's something they are looking for the board for direction, is for their policy. And for Nevada Association of School Boards, this Saturday is that school safety speaker. I know a few of you are going to that. There's still spaces available if you want to go. And then the other thing is Renee needs to know if you're going down for the conference down in Vegas, if you wanted to tour the facility, and I'm having a brain fart right now. What facility in the tour?
It's called Switch, and it's the CEO of the organization is Rob Roy. They're a high-tech, high-profile, multi-billion-dollar company that wants to partner with public education, and Mrs. Towns and Mrs. Kima has already taken that tour and have said it's really something to see. And so if you are going, it would be great if you could go and take part of that tour.
Renee would need to know tonight, because then you have to fly out earlier that day so she can finalize the flight arrangements, because flights are pretty cheap right now. So you can just let her know before you go. I'd appreciate it, and that's all I have. Going on to number 5, association reports. Mr. Wallace.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, district staff, Superintendent Stokes. The association would like to really thank the district and Superintendent Stokes and Dr. Delphin for putting up with OCEA as we hammered out a couple policies that will be before each of you tonight. There was a misunderstanding on my part looking at NRS that day, and the frustration that the legislature has decided to backdoor the student data piece and assign it to each of you to decide tonight. That even though their own committee, even though their own interim finance committee has decided that the inclusion of student data is not ready to move forward, especially in light of the numerous lawsuits throughout the nation, the cheating scandals that Washington, D.C. has gone through with Student First, who really spearheaded all of this to begin with, and et cetera, that the legislative members still found a way to say, you must include student data. And to do that was by saying that the interim finance committee, if they choose to delay the implementation of it, you are now charged as a school board to develop policy to implement on evaluation starting this very current year. At the time, I hadn't had an opportunity to really talk with my colleagues within the state because I was completely caught flat-footed on this one, as was other associations, which is really strange. We somehow overlooked this component. In doing it, the district was very willing to really look at what is the best way we can implement student data in a way that's not going to jeopardize anyone's evaluations for this year. NDE did not give us any real clear indication on what a substantial amount of student data within evaluation really looks like, except for the 50% benchmark within the original NRS from 2011. There's no way we're ready to move forward with that because NDE themselves don't even have the data to be able to do it. 3 of the benchmarks they said that needed to be included in this policy, one of those major benchmarks, they themselves are not able to meet. The district, we're working on it in a way through Mastery Connect, but because of our Race to the Top grant, we have this really unique way we want things to look for us and our students when we look at it to make sure it's actually going to be truly valuable and can actually inform our assessments and instruction and not just another data collecting tool as you've heard so much of out there. In going ahead and moving forward, we were able to come to some numbers to bring to you tonight through the district that the association was okay with at the time of 75% of just a regular evaluation and student data being 25%. In light of speaking with my partners out there at Douglas and in Clark, they are going for 5%. That NDE, by not providing any type of direction whatsoever of what substantial truly means within an evaluation, they feel that's going to be safe and a way to go.
Mr. Wallace, can I ask a question? Since this is on the...
Hang on. Wouldn't we cover this under
That's what I'm
the agenda
asking.
item?
That's what I'm asking.
Because we can't have discussion during the reports, can we?
No.
He's free to present now if he chooses, but your agenda item, you'll also be asking for public comment at that time, and if he's doing it now, then he doesn't need to repeat it at that point.
But Mr. Wallace, if it's all right with you, I would really value your input on that agenda item so that we can ask you questions as we discuss it. So just in terms of that subject matter, would it be all right to save your comments so we could have some discussion? Because that would be, I think, much more useful to all of us to have it at that point, if that's all right with you.
No, that'd be perfectly fine, Trustee. I would just want to do kind of the pre-teaching. I was doing the pre-teaching part, and then, I was available to come back up. But I can definitely do it then if that's fine, Trustee. Okay, thank you, Madam President. I will return at public comment for that agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Any other association reports? Mrs. Gillis.
I just want to add on to what Mr. Wallace said. As president of the Administrators Association, I just want to thank our district leadership that we were involved in the discussion. I know that they could have determined a policy to bring to you tonight for your discussion. They were kind enough to bring us into the conversation and share their plan and get our input. We spent quite a bit of time talking about it, but I just think this is one of the things that makes our district so special, is that I imagine most districts, no one was even consulted. It was just brought to the board. So on behalf of the administrators and our meeting, looking at all the information, we just wanted to say thank you to the leadership for including us in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you guys took advantage of that, too, to come and be participant and give up some time of your own. Any other association reports? Seeing none, we'll go on to public comment. This is the time on the agenda that people can come up on any item that's not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes, and if you would just state your name for the record. And we have 2, Mr. Apolito. You're up first. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam President, honorable board members, Superintendent Stokes. I wanted to thank Superintendent Stokes for coming to Capitol Crossfire. And if you haven't seen that yet, Superintendent Stokes and I sat across the table. It is posted at stopcommoncorenevada.com. I believe that the facts are on our side, and Superintendent Stokes did a good job considering he's been handed lemons, I mean. I know he's trying to make lemonade out of it, so is everybody else, but the fact is there's a lot of issues that are surround Common Core. One of the aspects is this data collection. I don't have time to get into it, but I will in my meeting next week. The other aspect, of course, is the teacher tracking, which these people are onto. What most people still aren't onto yet is this architect of Common Core. His name is David Coleman. He's now the president of the College Board. He's in charge of the SAT and all the AP classes. The SAT has already been dumbed down starting in 2016 to align with Common Core. The essay will be optional, the math will be easier, the vocabulary will be easier, there'll be no penalty for wrong answers. David Coleman has also changed the AP US History class. All the AP classes will be changed. Larry Kruger is a former AP US History teacher. He's received numerous awards from the College Board. Mr. Kruger writes, and this is about World War II, quote, as a result, students are not expected to learn, the framework provides no discussion of the rise of fascist aggression in Japan and Europe. As a result, students are not expected to learn about the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, the Munich Conference, the Nazi-Soviet Pact, the Lend-Lease Act, or Hitler's atrocities against the Jews. Here's a direct quote from the new AP US History. It's on page 58 or 59. Quote, wartime experiences such as the internment of Japanese Americans, challenges to civil liberties, debates over race and segregation, and the decision to drop the atomic bomb raised questions about American values. This is Common Core. This is AP US History. This is something you guys have zero control over, especially if you don't look into it. And you cannot support part of this. If you support Common Core, you support the data collection, you support the dumbed down SAT, you support the new AP US History, it's a package deal. It was designed to be a package deal. I know you guys have little control over it, but you really need to educate yourself. I have a couple handouts. I would also like to invite all of you to our meeting next Thursday at the Brick, Thursday at 6:30. I have a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation. I'll go over this and plus a lot more. A lot has happened since Trustee Ron, I won't even try that last name, has seen the presentation. So please, if you can make it to the PowerPoint, that same day, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Urquiaga, will be in Reno speaking privately to the Chamber of Commerce. Typically, the Chamber of Commerce has public meetings, so he's going to be up there discussing the future of education in private with the Chamber. We can't attend. Maybe one of you guys could get in. I'm pretty sure they won't let me in. So I have a couple handouts. I only have one for you guys, and if anybody in the audience wants one, I have some for them. Hopefully I'll see you next Thursday at 6:30 at the Brick. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carter, you're up.
My name is David W. Carter. Madam President, trustees, Superintendent Stokes, staff, and audience members. I wish to make a few comments regarding Common Core from the math standpoint. I have given board members and the staff on the dais a copy of 2 examples of what I see as the stupidity of Common Core. And like the example of the letter to Jack from the frustrated parent, I have a great deal of experience with math. Please excuse me a moment as I read this note to so the audience may know what I'm talking about. The example is from one solution for Common Core math. Jack used the number line below to solve 427 minus 316. Find his error, then write a letter to Jack telling him what he did right and what he should do to fix his mistake. He came up with the answer using the format for Common Core of 121, when the answer obviously is 111. And a parent of the student that was given this problem, and this is an actual letter, wrote, "Dear Jack, don't feel bad. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in electronics engineering, which included extensive study in differential equations and other higher math applications. Even I cannot explain the Common Core mathematics approach, nor get the answer correct. In the real world, simplification is valued over complication. Therefore, 427 minus 316, the two numbers on top of each other, equals 111. The answer is solved in under 5 seconds, and the process used is ridiculous and would result in termination if used. Sincerely, a frustrated parent." My bachelor degree in accounting included a minor in business and classes just short of a minor in calculus and analytical geometry also. I have a master in business administration with an emphasis in financial management. I have 33 years of accounting experience. Like this frustrated parent, if anyone had tried to use Common Core methodology while I was supervising them, I would first fire them. Then I would have them committed to an institution mentioned in a song I first heard as a teenager. Some of you may, older folks may remember this one. A few lines from the chorus I mentioned. "Counting flowers on the wall, that don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with a deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo, don't tell me what I can do." He was obviously in a mental institution. Common Core math will destroy our children's abilities to compete in the labor market. It might even drive them crazy. I know I can't understand it. I ran across a couple students as I was handing out flyers to parents this afternoon, and they told me, with a parent there, that they hated Common Core. They saw my shirt and they said, "It's driving us nuts." Evidently, Mr. David Coleman, as was mentioned, knows more about math than I, as an accountant who worked with numbers every workday for 33 years, do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other public comment? Mr. Schaefer.
President Wilkie, members of the board, Mr. Stokes. Keith Schaefer, for the record, as a parent and as a supporter of Carson High and the schools in the district. I just wanted to take a minute and not give a report, but just express gratitude to the community and to the members of the community who have come forward to help with the scoreboard at Carson High. I don't want to make more of this than needs to be, although I have to tell you that whenever a PTSA or a boosters club decides they want to do something for the school district, the common thing they say is, "Oh, my brother's got a backhoe and we can come on Saturday and put this in." Scoreboard of the kind that has just recently been erected at Carson High is a pretty significant endeavor. It's part of the district's property, and it took a considerable coordinated effort and some significant generous donors in the community who came forward to fund that scoreboard. Right now, that scoreboard is nearly entirely funded by all donations from contributors. So I just wanted to publicly express my sincere thanks for those who were involved, and not the least of which is those of you here. The district supported that. Staff, technology, construction management, capital projects group, all alike were involved in that. And it was a vision that started many years ago. I think Mr. Pat Houlihan was part of that, the track facility and that facility. So I just wanted to publicly express that. The second thing is I'm already in a little bit hot water for sharing my wife's accomplishments with somebody here. But if I don't get those books back, I will be in bigger hot water. They gave her limited numbers, and they are reserved for her grandchildren and children. So if I don't get those back, I will. That's all I have. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Go ahead.
Never. Keith, I want to tell you, I was at Friday night's game. That scoreboard is absolutely just a wonderful addition. And it was nice to see that all through the game, the acknowledgements that went out to the community and the donors for that. That was truly a community effort, which is serving us really proud.
Well, I agree. It makes it a top-notch facility, and we're not done yet. Those donors will be recognized in perpetuity with their name and their logo on the bottom of that. So they get they got some skin in the game, and they'll get something out of it as well. So, but thanks to all of you who were helpful in that process. And we hope, I've talked to the staff at Carson High, we hope at halftime in one of our next games to do a little something there to recognize those and those who have helped. So that's all I have. Thanks.
I wondered why they weren't autographed. There you go. It's the only reason I kill my teenage daughters. Waiting for those grandchildren. Number 7, informational update on school vaccination clinic held 2013 to 2014 school year. Mrs. Warcom? Sorry. That's why I usually just say Sandra, because I don't do well with last names.
It's been pronounced several ways. Okay, great, thank you. So I know you guys' time is very valuable. I want to start out first. My name is Sandy Warko, and I'm a public health nurse at Carson City Health and Human Services. And last year, I was hired on September 11th to manage this project school-located vaccine program, and I was in schools on September 12th running clinics that I had no idea what I was doing. Is it not? I thought I had a loud enough voice. So I wanted to start out with just letting you guys know that the Carson City School District, the professionalism of the staff of this district is incredible. And I'm a Douglas girl. So I did tell Mr. Stokes, I have been so impressed with every school and the professionalism of that staff and meeting with the principals in the schools and educating them on the program. It has been an absolute reward to be working with Carson City School District. And you're going to see how rewarding your school district's partnership has been when you see some of your data. So I'm here just to talk about what is a school-located vaccine program. I think that is something that people just aren't familiar with. And so the vaccine, every year in the United States, the flu is still very high. We are already looking at what is it going to look like this year. We are going to do the same vaccine as we had last year, which was a quadrivalent, which was the first year that we had 4 viruses covered in the shot or the nasal mist. And it's looking the same. And what we do is we look at Australia in the southern hemisphere and see where the flu is going. And we know that this year coming up, it's either going to be a moderate to severe year based on what Australia is seeing now. Australia is peaking very high right now. So 6 months from now, typically as the southern hemisphere comes up to the northern, we will see that. But we still have many people who actually get hospitalized and die from complications of the flu. The flu is not necessarily what kills you, but it's the complications from the flu that get people, that cause death, that cause hospitalizations. And if you've ever had the true flu, it is a miserable, miserable experience. So people say, oh, I had it, it wasn't that bad. You didn't have the true flu. So the benefits of the actual flu vaccine, it certainly impacts medically and it impacts economically a community. So if you have a community that is not vaccinated, it is going to go throughout your community and impact it both medically in the hospitals and in private practitioners' offices, as well as economically, because those that get it may not have the means to pay for their medical care, and that's going to fall onto the community. Vaccination has become the cornerstone for control of really these awful diseases. And, we've thought we've eradicated some things like whooping cough, and we're finding out, nope, everybody's got to get boosted back up because it's back and it's ugly. What I do want to talk about is this little study. It's kind of an older study, and they have not repeated the study. But what they really did is they did a study in Boston's Children's Hospital, and they compared it to Montreal, Canada's ER. And Canada does not push or recommend that all people get vaccinated annually. It's kind of like, well, if you want to, it's okay, go ahead. But what they did is, the United States does recommend that. And so they were able to demonstrate that they had a 34% decrease in their emergency room visits in children ages 2 to 4 with flu-like, and an 18% decrease with 5 to 18-year-olds compared to that Montreal ER of children. So it does really make a difference. So I just love this little quote. It says, school systems are not responsible for meeting every need of their students, but when the need directly affects learning, the school has to meet the challenge. And I think you guys are well aware of that, and anything that comes. And where does this fall in with flu vaccines? And it's absenteeism. If we can help you guys reduce absenteeism, that means students are in school, being educated, and we're not chasing, the absenteeism kids. So I just think that was a great little quote. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time. So why do we focus on the schools and the school-age children? Well, one, school enrollment makes up 20% of the population. So if you can get into schools, you can really impact your community because 22% of your population is in the schools. So that's a great reason. But it also really benefits the larger community in that that's that herd immunity that you guys may have heard about, is if we can get in and we're vaccinating these young kids, we're creating this immunity for the elderly in your community. We're creating immunity for those that don't get vaccinated. We're creating immunity for kids in school who don't get vaccinated. So that's that herd immunity. And then, flu children often, when they get the flu, they get all those secondary infections. So these are just a few of them: ear infection, respiratory illness, sinus infections, meningitis has even been linked to as a complication to flu, and of course that increases your absenteeism. So school-located programs, really, the CDC has came out with this push to really get into schools and wanted to see the benefits. We were on the second round of a national push for this school-located project that the CDC put out. And so students really, once we're in the schools, they're out of class about 15 minutes from the time we bring them out of class, immunize them, and get them back to class. When we did TDAP in the spring, we had improved our processes a little bit. We just found some things that we could do differently. And those children in the middle schools were out of class less than 5 minutes when we timed them. From the time we got them immunized and back to class. So they're not missing time out of the classroom. We're not pulling them out for an hour at a time. It's really minimal. The students who get immunized often are the protected, through that herd immunity within your school community. So it's another reason to have this program come into the schools. And more students are reached this way because we can really reach the kids that can't afford it, who have no private practitioner. They can't walk into Walgreens and say, I can't afford a flu shot, will you give it to me for free? They can't do that, but we will do that. We're not going to turn anybody away on ability to pay. Students and staff don't have to take a half day off or a full day off to go get their flu shot and have their office visit. So that really helps with the school not having to backfill with substitute teachers for that. We do hit all the staff who want to get immunized. We come before school starts and we stay after school ends, so that we're not, staff can do it before and after and not be leaving their classrooms. And then, of course, the students will remain healthy and resulting in decreasing your absenteeism. And they have started doing quite a few studies that are showing that because we're decreasing absenteeism, especially during flu season, not all absenteeism, but during flu season, that schools are reporting improved test scores. The schools in the especially the East Coast that got the first round of this project, have already been able to demonstrate increased test scores because of the absenteeism rate going down. So what are some of those economic benefits to the schools? The students aren't out for long periods of time, so they're not falling behind their studies. Staff is not having to do all the extra work of preparing homework assignments for students or answering phone calls from parents or having guidance or having tutoring now for that student because they've been out for 1-2 weeks, because that is exactly what can happen with the flu. You can have a student out for over 2 weeks. Staff who gets immunized, they have less sick days, and so that will, help with your substitute costs, as well as if you have a self-funded insurance program. And I'm not sure if your guys is a so for schools that have a self-funded insurance program, that really helps their risk-benefit ratio when it comes to getting their contracts with their insurance provider and their premiums. So it does affect those type of things if we can keep staff healthy. Benefits to the parents and the families, obviously, the families that are immunized, they're less ill. Again, we're just creating that herd immunity. Even if the parents don't get immunized, we're getting those kids immunized. Parents are going to miss less work because they're not going to be having to stay home with ill children. They're not going to have to make appointments for those children. They're not going to have to get their children somewhere else for a flu shot, which is drive time on a Saturday in the evening. We're coming to them. No copays. There's no copays with us coming into the school. So that's an economic benefit to the parents. And then, not news to anybody, but going into urgent cares and emergency rooms is very, very expensive. And even with the health exchange and the health insurance, we still have a lot of uninsured people, and they still have high deductibles to walk into those facilities. So an average ER visit just to walk in the door is about $2,000. And I don't know that people recognize or realize that, but it's very expensive. And then, children with no primary care will have the opportunity to get vaccinated because we're coming to the school, and they just there's not a lot of resources out there for people that don't have a primary care provider or have no insurance. Or even now with the new exchange having Medicaid, we are seeing a huge increase in the Medicaid numbers. We don't have enough providers to take all these people with Medicaid. Medicaid pays very poorly. And providers just cannot have a large percentage of their practice with Medicaid, and that's just, real life. I'm not going to go into the vaccine. Other than it's a quadrivalent and it's 4 viruses are covered in that vaccine, and it's the same as last year. Last year, the majority of what we saw was still H1N1, which, if you remember, that was the big pandemic, and that is the majority of what we saw last year, and that is the majority of what Australia is seeing this year, so it will be covered. So step by step, I want to quickly go through this process with you. So what we do is we kind of just start preparing at the end of the school year. We're really starting to already prepare, talking about schedules, talking about paperwork. I'm meeting with principals to make sure they're still comfortable. Were there any issues that they had? What can we do differently when we come into your school? So we really start really at the end of the school year. And in the fall, in talking with all the principals this year, they asked us to have our packets ready to go the first day of school because they really wanted to send it out in any paperwork that they were going to send out the first day. Now this year you guys are going on to your online system, which is very exciting because we're hoping we can tag on next year if it's successful. But, so basically they just get a very simple packet to send home. It looks like this. It has a parent letter, it has the consent, and it has just a little envelope for parents to, if they have to make a payment towards the flu shot, then they can seal it and it's safe. And also they can put their child's name and what teacher in school, just so in case things get separated, we're ready to go. So that's how we did this year. We got them all out first day. Some schools sent them out the first week. Some have waited a little bit. That is really up to the school, and I have no preference. Whatever they think their parents will do best. And we've actually had a lot of consents mailed to the health department. So 1 week before, we start kind of sending out reminders, saying, hey, teachers, will you start reminding the kids, hey, remember you had this flu thing, can you bring it in? And then right before, we're asking the schools to do an auto dialer home, just to remind their parents of that school that says, hey, on this day, the flu clinic will be here. If you haven't turned in your consent, please get it turned in. And then vaccination day, we just come in, we set up. The best compliment we actually had with all of this, and we probably had it almost from every principal, was, we didn't even know you were here. And that is absolutely the best compliment we could get from a principal, because that meant our process was smooth. They didn't get complaints from parents. They had no complaints from the teachers, and the students all did well. So that's a great compliment. We do other immunizations, so we do in the spring go to Tdap, and we try to catch all those. 6th graders are going to become 7th graders when the law requires that they have their booster. So we'll go in and we'll catch everybody up. We did about 200 between Carson City and Douglas County of Tdap this last spring, making sure that they were ready for not getting kicked out when they came back to school this year. Pioneer, we went in and caught up a lot of those kids because they fall through the gap, and so they were missing, like, general varicella, chickenpox. They were missing hepatitis A, their second. So we were catching all those kids up as well. So we do go in and do other things based on the school. So here is the Carson City stats for this last year. So overall, we actually immunized, this includes staff and students, 34% of the population in the school. And students alone, it was almost 29%. Some schools, Empire did fabulous. I mean, some schools did really well, and I think that lower population, those parents that's like, oh, please, thank you. So that is an awesome statistic. That is the best in the state, and that is higher than almost everybody else in the nation. And so they have asked us, what are you doing, and how are you getting this done in the schools? And it's because of the partnership with Carson City School District. I think this was their 3rd year last year doing it, so parents get to know it, staff gets to know it. But really, your support and your staff support makes those numbers happen. So do you want to go to the other one? And this one, you have the graph in your packet. So this is just another, a graph that you can really see how successful the program really is, and how many were vaccinated and how many students were vaccinated just based on enrollment in the school district. When CDC started this, they had a very lofty goal that it would be about 30 to 40%. All the school, the nation said that's not going to happen in schools. You're not going to get that much. And so the project managers all set a goal of about 20%. And you guys exceeded that. And not many other school districts did across the country. And it was the best in the entire state of Nevada. So that just gives you guys a breakdown per school, gives you it in a graph form, just really honestly fabulous results. And I wish we could track the absenteeism. We've been trying to work a little bit with the school district to try to get that to our epidemiologist who wants to start tracking absenteeism in schools, not only just for flu, but for others. So we're hoping to maybe get something moving in this next year with that. But really, really good job. So if you want to go back to the PowerPoint. Absolutely.
On the graph, when it says you have total enrollment, total vaccinated, students vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So when you say, what is total vaccinated?
So total vaccinated, when we're doing enrollment, we're just really counting student enrollment.
Right.
But total vaccinated is staff, students, and sometimes families. Some schools allowed families to come in. And so that was just that total number against just the enrollment of the students for a percentage.
Okay. And do you have a feel for, I'm sure that's harder data to get, but if you take a school like Bordewick, 203 students vaccinated, 234 total vaccinated. Mm-hmm. There's probably some gap in there that some students may have been vaccinated through their private care physician.
Correct. Yeah.
So I mean, the numbers really, I would hope,
Yeah.
are even better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think your true students who are vaccinated is much better than this. This is just who are taking advantage of the program within the school. I think that Carson City has a very high number. It's well advertised, and people do participate in lots of the clinics that are available to them to get it. And, you know, the pharmacies do a good job of getting out the word, and if you can afford it or you have insurance, that's a great place to go. And we're really, I mean, we're going to the same thing. Our packet, we have to gather the insurance information and bill insurance because the program has to become sustainable. The government's not going to continue to fund programs like this, so.
Go ahead.
So Sandy, is there a way that, I don't know if this would be something that you could do, but just to track to see how many kids are actually getting vaccinated, if you have them just fill out like a little survey, if they decline the vaccine, could there be something on there that says, this is why I'm declining because I want to take my kid to, you know, the doctor or whatever, just so we could kind of track better? Because I look at this and I think, I mean, I think it's great that we're doing well, but to me, it doesn't seem like we're doing enough.
Well,
it seems low.
Yeah, of course, you're thinking of the whole community, and they are getting vaccinated elsewhere. So we did do a survey at the end of last year. We did pass that survey on to Carson City to post onto their website, hoping parents would do the survey to see. They didn't post it for us, but Douglas did and Washoe County did. And so we did get some results about, are people getting vaccinated somewhere else? Where are they getting vaccinated? Were there barriers to the school program? And so Immunize Nevada actually is going to be posting the results of that survey. And so we did look at, you know, are they getting vaccinated? And yes, they are getting vaccinated elsewhere. They're not getting vaccinated. So we feel very confident that people are getting vaccinated. Okay, so if you just want to go on to that next, oh, I'm sorry, me, how about me? All right, so here's Douglas County. Yeah, oh wow is right. Can you see the difference that you guys are making? I mean, I think this makes it real, is Douglas County had an overall rate of 9.4% and a total of students of only 6%. That is building that partnership. That is helping people understand. So last year in Douglas County was the first year they even allowed us to go into the schools during school hours. Not all the schools would let us do it during school hours. All of your schools let us do it during school. So you're not asking parents to come back. You're not asking them to, you know, to do it in the evening at 6 o'clock and make it a community event. This project is really for students and staff, and it's in the school. And it's hitting that 22% population. So we have set a goal for Douglas County that we would like to raise their rates this year and raise from where we were last year by 25%. So we'll see if we accomplish our goal. All but one school in Douglas County is letting us come in during school hours because they saw your results from last year.
And the rivalry continues.
So I love the rivalry. I'm like, really? You know, you're going to let Carson City beat you by that much? So we went into the 4 counties last year, and you can see Lyon County would not let us in during any school hours. We only could come in like from 4 to 6 in the afternoon and use their school. And you could, really, if you're not in there in the school during school hours, people are not going to go back and get vaccinated. It's just not going to happen, and this really shows that. Story County let us in 1 school during school hours, and the other 2 were after hours. So you can just see that you don't catch the population that we're meant to catch. So we just wanted to let you guys know that we will be having a little germ costume coming soon. We are looking for volunteers who are willing to wear the germ costume because we'll be vaccinating. But we're hoping the kids will enjoy that, and we want to use that mascot to do other things. Fritch, we've talked with Fritch about maybe coming in and doing hand washing, and really trying also to get those healthy things started, so we keep kids and students, especially with now some of that grading of your guys' requirements against your absenteeism rates. So if we can help keep students healthy and in school, we're more than willing to partner in other ways. So in your packet, just really quick, you have just this little thing, and it's just my priceless campaign, and I'll sit down with people just with this piece of paper, just to go over, my down and dirty, and I'll say, this is what happens when children don't get vaccinated. This is what happens when we don't do it in school. It makes it much more difficult. And then on the back, this is what happens and why it's a priceless campaign when you allow us to come into the schools and vaccinate students and give parents the ability to do that. And they really do take advantage of it. So any questions?
Laurel?
Yeah, I just have a comment because I've helped out with the PTA at the flu clinic vaccinations at the elementary school. And just for any parents out there, the kids really are not traumatized by it. They take it really well. The boys have a one-upman with each other, and I got the shot, and even though they have the option of the mist.
Right.
And the PTA usually gives them a treat afterwards, and it's a really quick, very few distraught kids. Only a couple when I was there.
Yeah, it is. Really, it's very few. And they're distraught. The anxiety is once it's done, they're all fine. They really are. They do really, really, really well. They probably do better than if their parent were there. So, and we won't hold anybody down. We don't, if they're that distraught, we just send home, we weren't able to vaccinate, because we won't hold them down like a doctor's office or anything where the parent's present. We just aren't going to do that.
What about staff? Does that hold true for staff?
You know what? Staff is sometimes the hardest. I mean, they're sometimes the biggest babies, like, oh, come on, we just did 30 first graders, and you're like, ah. No, it's...
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Hopefully Mr. Stokes.
No, but this year we're coming over to the admin building and hitting them up so they don't have to go anywhere else to find it.
Sandra, is there a percentage of the population that if they're inoculated, that it's looked at as that this really reduces the conveyance or whatever of flu? I know with some other diseases I've read where if you have a certain percentage of a given population that's inoculated,
yes, that's that
you
herd
really
immunity.
bring down the...
Yeah, that's that herd immunity that we were kind of talking about. So if you get a large percentage who are vaccinated, they create a herd immunity around those that are not vaccinated, and therefore those that aren't vaccinated probably will not also get the flu. Yeah.
Is there any kind of recognized percentage of that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, we should be honest about the herd immunity, but it doesn't mean, oh, I'm not going to get my flu shot this year because everybody else is going to protect me.
Yeah, and yeah, because it's probably a pretty high percentage that have to be inoculated in order for that herd immunity to work. But it protects those people that truly can't. Maybe they have medical issues that they cannot get immunized or they're allergic. So.
Thank you so much. This is a great program, and we're so excited that we keep continuing this and keeping Carson healthy.
So we will be in Carson City School District in October. So everybody has their packets, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Going on to number 8, report on completion of school progressive discipline plans for students as required by NRS 392.4644 for discussion only. Mrs. Kima.
Good evening, President Wilkie, members of the board. As you mentioned, Nevada revised statutes require site principals to create a progressive discipline plan. Those plans can be found on each school's website and in cases like the elementary and inside their PG. I'm here to report to you that I go on record that the Carson City schools K-12 schools have submitted their plans to my office, and that on your behalf, I will file a report with the State Department to show that we're in compliance with the law.
Any questions? I love when we delegate. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Moving on to number 9, adoption of CCSD test security plan for the 2014-2015 school year as required by NRS 389.620 for possible action. Mrs. Kiba.
Thank you. Per NRS again, each school district is expected to submit a board-approved plan of test procedures and security to the Nevada Department of Education. The purpose of this plan is to uphold the integrity of state-mandated tests and to maintain consistent testing administrative procedures in the district throughout each school. You have in your board packet the proposed plan that test administrators and their coordinators will use to train staff. You also have a brochure for the public, which will also be posted on our district's website. Each year, the state sends out changes that we're expected to put in our plan. And some of the differences that are, some of the changes that are in our plan this year that are different from the years past is that there shouldn't be any reference to any 5th or 8th grade writing assessment, since that's now embedded in the English language arts assessment for grades 3 through 8. You shouldn't see any reference to a CRT, a criterion reference test, since now that test has sunsetted, and we're moving on to a test that's just generally titled English, Math, and Science for grades 3 through 8. Also, any individual that's in a testing environment must be documented. We are expected to have sign-in sheets that include students' names, the test administrator, which would normally be the certified teacher that's in the classroom, the proctor, which may be a classified member or another teacher, and any unauthorized people who just happen to stop by that testing room. And we're expected to have a start and end time for the test. And then the other probably last big thing is the state's requiring us to save anything regarding security, the testing plan, the logs for training, any test irregularity reports, any investigation documentation for test irregularities for a period of 3 years, including any video surveillance if we happen to have that of something going on with testing. So those represent the big changes that are in the plan. Other than that, something that I reported that we were going to try last year, just as a district, that we did follow through with is we held monthly test coordinator meetings. Some of our test coordinators were new, now that all the assistant principals take on that responsibility. Before that, some of the counselors did that work, which NRS changed and said they shouldn't be doing that work, it should be somebody else. And so having those monthly meetings in small group discussion to talk about troubleshoot, plan, organize, understand what the assessments were about, I think was a good training ground for our folks.
Any questions? Laurel?
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm quick. Just on page 14, I noticed a typo across from map at the bottom, language. It's misspelled. Right across from fall. Did you find it? Or is it just
Okay. I also noticed too that on page 2 where it says if I submit this approved by the board September 19th, for some reason it says 2024 instead of 2014, and that will be corrected.
Ron?
Just have a question on page 4. Walk me through the language. It's on the bottom, limited English proficient, LEP. That second bullet, are prohibited permissible. What does that mean? Are prohibited permissible?
That's a contradiction. That's
You got bilingual dictionaries for LEP students testing with accommodations are permissible for math and science, all grades. Then you got prohibited in bold, underline, and then the next word is permissible.
so the word permissible should be out.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think permissible goes away.
Permissible should be out.
And continuing on to page 5, under the career, technical, and adult education, the CTE assessments, you got 2 bullets, employability, skills, and in a program. What does that mean? I don't, what is the context of that?
There are 2 different types of assessments that Michelle Lewis will be speaking about in the October board meeting. She'll be reviewing with the board all the changes that are going with CTE assessments, career technical ed. Students are expected to take 2 different assessments. One is based on their content. So let's say at the end of my 3rd year in Penny Reynolds' Culinary Arts program, I take an end of course assessment, and if I score in a particular level, I pass that, I can earn up to 6 college credits based on that assessment. And then the end of program that's the end of program technical assessment. The employability skills for career readiness assessment, that assessment is also to see how prepared I am in culinary arts to be ready for the world. So it's a college and career readiness preparation assessment. And what we're going to have is to give you more detail on this. October, the first board meeting in October during Dr. Prodera's Race to the Top report, we're going to feature Michelle Lewis and the internships that are now in the process of being approved, and I'll have her go over some CTE data at that time. But there are 2 different assessments that these kids in CTE must take.
Okay, under the same, or on the same page, under timing the examination, just a little bit past the, we're under the paragraph additional time and breaks. It says some students will not complete all parts of the ELA, math, and science assessments or the HESP during the scheduled testing period and must be given additional time as long as they are working productively. How do you judge whether they're working productively? What does that mean?
The test booklets for the high school proficiency in particular, and I believe they'll come out for the new ELA math and science assessments for the younger students. They give a suggested amount of time that it should take the average student to finish the assessment. But if they are busily writing and they go beyond, let's say it's a 60-minute suggested window, if they go beyond that, it's not legally a timed test. We're to give the child the amount of time that they need to complete the test. So that will be a judgment call on the proctor and the test administrator that are in the room. If the student is working diligently, if they're starting to randomly bubble or just put their pencil down, then, there's different considerations. But it's not a timed test.
So my question was similar to Ron's. I guess I have 2 parts to it, but in the first paragraph, it says any deviation from the specified time limits is a violation of ethical testing practices. So are we concerned that those 2 paragraphs contradict each other?
This is a copy and paste from the state required manual that we're supposed to have in our test.
Okay.
This covers all the tests, and the HSPE is not a timed test, and neither was the old CRT. But some tests are timed.
Okay. So students who have like I don't know all the terms, but an IEP or 504, does that factor into even the time test of those students?
Yes.
Are they allowed additional time if needed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. General guidelines are in this document, and then specific training and specific documents come out for each assessment. And that's the kind of thing we cover at that monthly test coordinators meeting.
Any other questions? Does require a motion if anyone would like to make one.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees adopt Carson City School District test procedures, security policy, and test security plan for the 2014-2015 school year as submitted in accordance with NRS 389.620. And I guess I would amend that to say with the corrections noted.
Second by Joe. Any other board discussion on the motion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Mrs. Kima. On to number 10, discussion and possible action of selecting a topic for the 2014-2015 Carson City School District Board of Trustees sponsored American Essay Contest for possible action. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Just like Monday night NFL football, we have a reoccurring activity that happens with our school board. It's time for us to talk about and determine a topic for the 2014-2015 American Citizen Essay Contest. So as a reminder, the essay contest began back in 2002 to honor the memory and events of September the 11th. A fund has been established to help pay for the students who win the contest. We have been fortunate to have a community partner through Wells Fargo who has helped to contribute toward the payment of the winning students. So there are cash awards at each level for the elementary, middle, and high school age students. We opened this contest to any public, private, charter, or homeschooled student in the community. Participation is voluntary, and the essays are judged on the following qualities: adherence to topic, quality of writing, and originality of thought. And we're very fortunate that Renee especially spearheads this whole event, but with your help to identify the topic, that would be the purpose of this agenda item tonight. And so in your packet, you have a list of the topics that have been used in the past since 2002. And in addition, you have a variety of other choices that we have suggested, but certainly this is not an all-inclusive list, and you could add your own. And we hope at the end of your discussion, we would be able to begin taking our next steps, which would be to advertise to the interested students and teachers the contest topic, and then we would go from there. So, Madam President, I turn the time over to you and your board.
Thank you. Candace.
I just had a thought. I love number 11, which is what is the most important freedom in the Bill of Rights. But then I thought a nice twist might be to say, if you could add something to the Bill of Rights, what would it be? Or if you could change the Bill of Rights, what would you change?
Anyone else? Joe?
I think they're all good choices. So I'm gonna be happy to concede to anybody, but I think I like 12 the best. What do you think our founding fathers, like George Washington, would think about the United States of America today? What would they like and dislike about it? It kind of goes almost hand in hand with Candace's thoughts on, what's working, what isn't, and hopefully we would get some conversation as to how would you make it better.
Ron?
Well, there are some, good topics. I like number 2. The land of liberty, what it means to me. And maybe it's time for that to be addressed in the world today. So that was.
Anybody else? I got my Uncle Sam one, so I'm good. I waited 10 years for that one.
Well, we have 4 on the table.
4 on the table.
Somebody go for it.
The only thing that I worry about the Bill of Rights one is I'm not sure how many elementary kids even know what the Bill of Rights is.
That was my thought, is that might be harder for them to
That's
articulate.
my only thing there, but other than that. Okay, it's 8:30, so this is not going to be a long agenda item.
Let's do number 2.
Because that's good for both,
Elementary.
you know, elementary kids and.
So motion is that number 2, the Land of Liberty, what does it mean to me, be the essay contest topic. Second by Steve. Any discussion?
Oh, good.
Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the work begins. Thank you, Renee, for all your hard work. We appreciate it. And the other judges. There's quite a few judges that take their responsibility, so we do thank you for that. Moving on to number 11, informational update on work being done to promote and advertise the accomplishments and programs offered by the Carson City School District. For discussion only, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. A past request from trustees to talk about where we are in terms of our marketing efforts within the school district has resulted in my statements to you this evening. This process of studying business practices has been interesting and informational, and it also has, at least on my part, I think, created a situation where I've wanted to go slowly enough that I am taking into account and giving due consideration to things that I'm still learning about. Having said that, I want you to know that a number of things have been accomplished, and I'd like to just kind of go through those with you and then let you know about what our plans are here in the very near future and some of the steps that we plan on taking. And in addition to that, talk about some of the things that we have going on that may not be considered part of a formal plan, but things that we're doing well and that we hope to continue to do. Mrs. Keeman and I, after having several opportunities to hear from trustees and really exploring this whole concept behind how do we talk about the things that we do as a school in a formal way. And we had heard in past meetings from NNDA Executive Director Rob Hooper that he travels to other cities in search of bringing industry back to Carson City and to our area to bolster and strengthen our economy. And it was very helpful. We learned a lot, and we certainly have applied that thinking as we've moved forward in some of our work. We began meeting with several individuals who are local owners, experts, as it were, in public relations and marketing techniques. Each of these individuals are single employee business owners, small business owners here in town. And we learned that that individuals of this type have different skill sets, just probably like anybody does, and they have areas of expertise that they do better than others. And so in also exploring this idea, when you go to the statutes, school districts and public agencies like school districts have the ability to engage in professional service contracts depending on certain whatever it is that is needed. And so I checked with Mr. Pavlakis, asked, is marketing or public relations activities part of a professional services? And he gave me the feedback, yes, they are. But he also suggested that to be fair to individuals who have businesses here locally, you would likely put out what your scope of work and what your expectations would be in a request for qualifications. So we have embarked on that process, and I give Mr. Fueling credit for his work and his efforts in this area. And we are looking at probably in, this is a draft, by the way, but it's a document that talks about the scope of work that we hope to be able to engage with someone who has this expertise, this background, helping us to do a variety of things. One would be to help us develop a robust and a comprehensive communication plan, which we're also developing because of communication and interaction that we have not only with staff but also with many members of the community who are involved in many aspects of our programs. Of course, social and electronic media. Mrs. Towns, through her wizardry and expertise of things that I'll never understand, has put in place in our school district a very robust web page that is not only applicable to us at the district office, but is applicable district-wide. So all of the schools, and even as recently as our last principals meeting, which was the 4th of September, we gave training on that, thanks to some of Mrs. Towns' staff. And so that we're taking some baby steps. Again, we've handed over a very powerful tool and are asking our staff to come up to speed on that, learn how to make available to not only our parents and our patrons, but also anybody from the outside who might be looking in at our schools. How can we use that that system to really benefit the types of things that we're capable of doing and that we're doing every day in our schools? Of course, print media is huge, and we feel very fortunate. If you've looked at the newspaper probably within the last I would say week, maybe 10 days, there have been a number of high quality stories and coverage of programs, from our scoreboard to Jumpstart College to our pre-K programs, and we really feel like that the Nevada Appeal has been our strong partners, and Terry is always very willing and interested to share information about the school district, and oftentimes contacts me to explore ideas for stories. And so appreciate the strong relationship that we have with the Appeal. I was at Rotary today, and one of my great assignments is to introduce a student of the week. And I was there with a senior from Carson High School whose interest was graphic arts. Sitting at my table happened to be Mark, the publisher at the Nevada Appeal, who, when he heard that our student had an interest in graphic arts, handed her immediately his business card and said, "Call me anytime. We'll set up an opportunity for you to come over to our shop, and we'll talk. We'll see what I can do to help you." And even said, "Boy, if you're expert at this, I'll give you a job." So again, just having those kinds of connections in the community, having the willingness. I mean, Mrs. Wortgo talked about the relationship that she has with our school. Well, we're fortunate to live in a place where we have a tremendous number of individuals who have that same interest in us as an organization and in our students. And they reach out to us and say, how can we help? How can we be a part of that? So it's tremendous that this work is being done, and that our school folks are being recognized for true professionals, and they're recognized for the work that they are producing and the direction that they're giving our students in their work. We also have, of course, a very robust process through our telephone process. It's sort of a love-hate relationship. Some of our people love that auto dialer, and some of the folks who sometimes end up on our list that don't want to be on our list don't necessarily always like that. I also like to credit Trustee Reynolds, who helped me break through into the college's Department of Journalism. And with his help, we have got a line on being able to employ, or at least provide, a stipend of approximately $2,500 per semester, a UNR intern, which can help us with a number of written documents, and so we'll certainly factor that into our communication plan as we move forward. Probably one of the things that we don't talk about a lot, and I would say that in the last 2 years, since the implementation of a lot of the projects and initiatives of our strategic plan, we probably have more parents who are helping us make decisions and give input than ever before. And so even though there may not be a formal, look at document or a screen that pops up on a web page someplace, we have living, breathing, interested individuals who are learning more about the types of things that we're doing. And I think that in and of itself represents a huge effort in just educating people that live here in the community to a greater extent, so that we're able to share some of the great things that are going on. Trustee Swerzik mentioned a little video that was produced by Gina Hill, and in addition to that, which I believe would be just the perfect length and size to put on our webpage, where someone surfing the internet or taking a look at some of the electronic mechanisms that we're trying to develop would really come in handy. I've also contacted Sherry Kelly at Carson High School and asked her to do a similar type of document, one that would actually be student produced, one that would end up on our webpage or in multiple places throughout our materials, for not only an educational opportunity for the students, but certainly something that would help to showcase some of the great work that can be done by our schools and by our students. Through the Race to the Top project, we also have Mastery Connect. We have recognized that one of the critical needs in our school district is to not only take data and use that data to make decisions, but to make that data available to our parents. Having that ability to be empowered to the point to where they are now more involved, that family engagement piece that's an important part of our strategic plan, we've got a step going in the right direction for that to be available to our parents. All of our schools are doing a great job of connecting with parents outside of school, and as was mentioned earlier, we're hoping that effort really be magnified by our new principal over at Carson High School. We're seeing those open invitations, those kind of doors thrown wide open. We'd like to have you folks come in and talk to us at Carson High School. We need your feedback. We want to get better, and that's one of the ways that we're planning to do that. As another printable kind of, report, in addition to the good folks at the Nevada Appeal, we also have a group here who's taken some interest in us called Sustainable Nevada, and I have been working with the folks here, and they have their own webpage and would like to get involved and tell really Carson City School District's story. And so they've become very interested in our strategic plan and Race to the Top and the good things that are happening. So outside agencies have inquired, and we are working with them to describe the good things that are happening. Also, Dr. Perdere and I were interviewed last week by a reporter from Ed Week, and they expect that story to air sometime in the third week of September. We're also taking the opportunity where maybe in the past we didn't, and that's to actually put an ad in some of the local business magazines like NNDA's In Focus, and also the Viewpoint, I believe, by the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe it's reversed. I'm not sure if I got them correct or not, but it's also a place where we are just starting to become more aware and trying to put our name and eventually a brand that represents Carson City School District out to the public. So those are our immediate events that are happening right now, and we are we still have some work to do, and we want to make sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's crossed with regard to our RFQ, and we'll be Looking, however, to have that out and to the public probably in the first week of October.
Candace?
You're doing an RFQ, not RFP on this?
I understand that it's not incumbent upon us, because it's a professional service that we're seeking, that we actually have to go out for a low bid. We're looking to find the people and the company, as it were, that we feel will work well for producing the scope of work that we would like to do. And so we have the opportunity for people to come to us and say, we can do this for you because we have people who have either this skill set or this capability. And then it's really after that we choose or select a company, I don't want to say vendor, but a company, then we enter into some kind of a negotiation for either a retention type of relationship, or we say we have these projects that we want to do, based on maybe your hourly rate and what you think it might cost to do that, then we would enter into whatever contractual relationship is required.
In terms of the budget for going out on the street, I mean, there's certain hoops that you have to go through depending on how much you're going to be able to spend on this kind of work. Is there an estimated ballpark figure in terms of what you think you're looking for?
Well, and we did not put a formal budget in our current budget for this, but in trying to look at the scope of work and then taking a very general number of $30 an hour, which is probably low, we would then, I and Mr. Fueling and I would look at probably my budget, and I was hoping that we could find $15,000 that we would use for this year. And whether or not that's completely doable, that is still something that we have right now several employment concerns that we're trying to sort through, and we would look to have a more formal budget for our marketing process in the coming budget year as we get ready for that. But we wanted to get started, we wanted to get going, we wanted to provide some of the detail that we've heard, knowing that we have some things already in place, but being able to expand on that.
Ron?
Yeah, Richard, so the scope of work and what I heard you is for a modern communication plan, which is going to include a lot of different venues. But I think it's important that in the scope of work, we want to tell the world why they should be coming here to the Carson City School District. If there's a business in Spain, we want that to be visible as to what makes the Carson City School District different and more attractive and viable for their business. So it's not limited just locally. We do want to tell the community, because that's important. I had a couple of people I talked to today that said there's nothing that's ever changed in this Carson City. And I said, yeah, and then I went through a number of things. So we do want to tell the local community, and that's, good through the print media and stuff, but the modern communication plan through that social media that gets to the world, we want to tell them why we're different, why we're extraordinary, and why they should be coming here to Carson City. And we have a story to tell that is pretty significant. So I hope in the request for qualifications that these people come forward with something that they can even propose to say, this is what you do in today's world.
Agreed.
Will there be an actual plan, a communication plan that'll be submitted to us?
Yes, but we would ask, again, because we believe that's probably an area of expertise that we would want to get right, we would ask that to be part of that scope of work.
And I would just ask again that that one of the first things to come out of this would be a downloadable brochure or a packet that's not only on the school district webpage, but it is front and center on the city's webpage, that information needs to be on, and if we have to address this with the, joint meeting that you're having in January, but the Carson City webpage should have that information about why the Carson City School District and why people should want to send their children to this Carson City School District. And at a minimum, we should have, as part of that, PDF, a couple pages, brochure, or however it's going to be designed, some of the accomplishments in the last year or 2 years, and not to let it go stale. But I really, really, really think that needs to be on the city webpage.
Okay.
And not just on our webpage. It has to be that partnership.
And I think the chamber would be another good aspect too, because that's business.
Well, chamber and NDA, there's a
Yeah,
lot.
everybody. Joe?
Just another component to this is after the capital expenditure, if you will. We're going to we're going to hire somebody to help us out with this, and we're going to put it in place, but then really the work becomes maintaining it. So having a document or a set of marching orders in place that allows us to continue to move forward in a manner that's doable for us as a school district, I think is real important. So we don't do a bunch of work and it's great for a year or two and then it just drifts away.
And I would say that for those of you who might have expertise in this area, we are going to be looking at another budget here before we know it, and it might be very helpful for me to hear from you what you think it's a, or what is a reasonable amount to spend toward this. And those of you that are business owners and maybe have more knowledge in this area than I do, it would be very helpful for me to have your feedback individually or even as a group.
Advertising's out.
Okay, well, keep up the good work. Thank you for working on that. Appreciate that. And Andrew, if you can find us that money, that would be awesome. Without cutting a teacher.
Not to, Ron touched on something, and I went to the meeting, and there's a lot of potential, but when we talk about something like a Carson City School Foundation, due to the Nevada state laws, as we're familiar with, we're probably not hiring teachers with any money raised by the foundation. I mean, that's, we could hire teachers for the whole state, but not just for our district. But, one of the things that foundation funding can support is things like marketing in the district. So, where there's a need, sometimes there's also a way to fill that need.
True. Thank you. Moving on to number 12, discussion on proposed CCSD policies, first reading policy 313A, evaluation of administrative personnel, policy 314A, teacher probation and evaluation, policy 315A, evaluation of post-probationary teachers, which policies will be enforced for the 2014-2015 school year in compliance with NRS 391.31214 and 391.31215 for discussion only. Dr. Delphin, take it away.
Thank you, Madam President, trustees, district staff. Can't believe it's our 4th week into school. Happy September, everybody. Seemed like yesterday we were hearing blueberries in the same center, huh? Before I get to my points here, I want to thank the district office staff. They've been really hard at work behind the scenes, getting everybody hired, getting everybody through fiscal, getting computers operational, HR, the grants. It's been quite a beehive of work, and I want to thank our support staff that have been in the background really getting the job done, keeping a lot of late hours. So I can't talk about this agenda topic without really looking, just a quick snapshot of school reform. You can't talk about teacher or leader effectiveness if you don't talk about school reform, which has been around since in the 1980s. So this has been around for a long time. And there are lots of experts who've talked about teacher quality and leadership quality for a number of decades. So I just want to say in the onset of this agenda item that I've got to give my hats and kudos to Nevada. that we're kind of late in the game in talking about teacher and leadership quality, but the amount of work that has been done since 2010 to today with all the stakeholders from, superintendent of the state to all the local superintendents across all 17 districts, to teachers and leaders for the past 4 years who have been doing this lively discussion, to say the least. And now we're getting into how does it get done then? And it's only been really 4 years. So I just want to put that in perspective. It's been in the national dialogue since 1980 or so, 81. So just to go back in time, back in 2010, I was part of a team from Nevada that collaborated with Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, and we looked at teacher and leader effectiveness, which then transformed. And the reason I'm giving this snapshot is because it's kind of like going to Story County. The road is not straight. And so the path to where we are today deserves a little bit of history. And back in 2010 to 2012, a lot of bowling balls were kind of colliding, if you will, with regard to the national landscape, how it's going to affect Nevada. Superintendent Guthrie was at the helm, and he was talking about teacher quality, ESEA waiver, and then the formation of the Teacher and Leaders Council, or TLC. And then from the TLC, we get to NEPF, which is the Nevada Educator Performance Framework. And then from 2013 to 2014, it got compressed, kind of like all those combustible items began to finally kind of take fire and take off. And in a short amount of time, we get to NRS, which says 50% of a teacher or leader's evaluation is based on practice and the other is on student outcomes. And then there's much debate about that now, as Mr. Wallace did some pre-teaching. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. He's covered about half my topics, so thank you for doing that too. So this summer, there was a lot of work, as you know, and with the IFC saying, finally, we're not really ready for prime time. We've got to slow this down. We don't have enough data, not just student outcome data, but data to actually measure what efficacy means for teachers and administrators. And hence the validation study that Fritch was under, among other schools across the state, and soon to be announced Eagle Valley will be in the second year of validation, which is what the IFC determined. We need more data. So I want to thank Nevada again, because we don't get enough credit sometimes. We're always low on something. But I want to say we're higher on being thoughtful about the dialogue between all the stakeholders across the state. And there isn't anyone I don't run into at Reno Airport where I don't see somebody who's been on some kind of committee meeting from TLC, or somebody who's got an opinion about it anyway. So what's happened since this summer, and also in the spring, and I was talking to Mrs. Kima earlier today, HR and Ed Services typically have their own lanes. We don't mix very much until, well, recently. And because of the professional development that has to happen between Ed Services and HR, we've had RPDP, or the Northwest Professional Development team, come over and really talked with teachers, not just at Fritch, but across our entire district. Every teacher, hopefully by now, has heard the NEPF song, and every administrator has as well, to be able to know what the standards and indicators are that the TLC has thoughtfully developed. And I've got to tell you, it was a lot of hard language work, kind of like how we do policies here at the district level. If you think at the state level, it's even more grandiose. You've got a lot more people in the room editing the document. So to get to that level of complexity with all the moving pieces to today is quite a feat. And I have to say, I'm proud of Nevada for not rushing, and that the IFC and the legislature get a lot of flack, but they're slowing down a little bit, knowing that they need more data to be able to make a good decision about what the work is, and that's really teaching and learning and leading. So that said, and I don't want to repeat what you're already reading with regard to Agenda 12, and Mr. Wallace and Mrs. Gillis, along with their teams, met with the district office not too long ago, and we hammered out this draft. And it's our first reading, and it does start out with, there are many unanswered questions. There still are. There's really smart people, smarter than me, trying to figure this out. West Ed being an organization, they're a think tank, and they're trying to figure this whole system out as well for the state, and what's fair, what's reliable, what's defensible. And those are always the factors, if you will, in making a good evaluation system. So if we look at race at the top, there's a common denominator here between what students know and are able to demonstrate. And the thing is the same thing for teachers and leaders. What they know and can demonstrate to be able to teach and lead schools. And they have to be really clear, they have to be fair, and everybody needs to know what those targets are. So in a way, our race to the top really is a microcosm of what the state is trying to do. I think we're doing it better, obviously, and I think we've had really great dialogue, formally and informally, you know, whether we're in meetings or in the hallways, or whether a meeting with other teachers or Mr. Wallace. There's some really thoughtful conversation about this that happens all over the place. So the draft, I think, is a great first run at looking at what is going to be fair. So what has to be in there are the components that for this year, we are not going with a highly effective, effective, ineffective, and minimally effective. I'm sorry, I got those out of order. But we're not going with a 4-tier system again to quickly review. We're going to satisfactory or unsatisfactory in our evaluations. We're pretty much going to use the same evaluation tool that we've been using, which is Danielson for the teachers, and the instructional leadership framework that we developed for administration. And from what I can tell from the conversations that have been happening amongst all the schools when RPDP have come by and kind of looked at the state's framework versus our framework, there's not a whole major difference in philosophy. And I'm just going to read what really our mantra has been in the teacher one, that you know, our overall effort is to improve what we do as educators. That's really it in a nutshell, and that's what the frameworks both in Danielson and in the leadership framework are about, is continual improvement. And I have to tell you, after being here for almost 7 years, that there's lots of flying pieces to the evals, and it is complex work. It takes a lot of time. And I can say the majority of our administrators, if not all, are really looking at it carefully. And with the new rollout of the NEPF, there's more work to be done, obviously, but that discussion is again, very productive. So you can see what we weighted per our discussion. 75% is professional practice and 25% out of student performance. Now, a lot of numbers were thrown around at the meeting. 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, what do we do, what's fair, what can we sell, if you will, to teachers and administrators. And we came up with that first draft of 75-25. And Mr. Wallace is probably going to come up and tell you other districts have other measures, which is fine. But really the bottom line is it's really a hold harmless year, if you will, for evaluations. And it doesn't impact our personnel decisions. If there is an underperforming staff member, there are lots of supports that are built into the Danielson framework that I know are being utilized, because they have to go through me and Mr. Wallace, by the way, if they need plans of assistance. And the same thing with administration. So we're not out to hang anybody, if you will. We're out to really, because this is tough work, folks. As Mr. Vollmer said, you know, we don't get to choose our blueberries. They choose us. and we choose to do the best job we can with what we have. So based on that, that's what this language is about. On number 5, I just want to point out that the exception to schools that are not ranked by the STAR system or NSPF is Pioneer High School. So they don't really factor in to the data right now. Again, unanswered from the state. How do we treat an alternative school? And then with student performance, what we decided to do was lots of discussion on TLC, whether to really tie that student data right to a teacher or right to administrator. We don't have all the facts in yet, so it's not easy to piggyback the data on any specific teacher. And some blueberries ripen later. So I remember one principal saying he was not great at college as a freshman, but he got the hang of it and finally got his degree by his 4th year. I think we all have our own ways of growing and learning as human beings, and teachers and leaders know that instinctively. I think we all know that as parents, that one child will mature a little bit differently from the other. I, too, am with you, Mrs. Wilkie. I don't know if I'm going to survive these teenage years without going crazy, but I will. That said, that's how we came up with this, and we're using a district aggregate from the NSPF rating, and looking back the last 3 years, we're at really 3.6, so we're pretty close to 4. So as a district, I think we're doing pretty well on the current system, which is still, as you know, it's mushy. And it's not well formed yet. Mrs. Kima talked about going from CRT to what the new thing will be. We're all trying to figure that out. So we're at a point, not just in national conversation, but in state conversation, that we are trying to move agile, with some agility, I should say, in being thoughtful and reasonable with how we treat our educators across the state. And that's how we came up with this language. So I'm here to kind of just echo what the language states, and also to answer any questions and to invite anyone else that might want to weigh in.
Steve?
I just want to, something brief and then a couple questions. As I look through this and I recognize that we're being tasked with the legislature to come up with something like this, that all the groundwork has not been laid. So when we look at using the STAR rating system for the student performance, we're essentially kind of taking a pass for the year and saying, don't know what to do, but we got to do something. So here's a bland way, and I don't have anything against it, but I mean, basically we're just saying we'll get back to it next year and see if we know more. But that's how I kind of look at this, and I don't have a problem with that. But it's, like you say, our school district's going to average out to 3 or above unless something, really unforeseen happens. So that's fine, I recognize that. Several years ago, when I was on the executive committee or whatever of the Nevada Association of School Boards, one of the things that was put together when we put together our position on the waiver, that request letter that we sent to the governor to waiver the No Child Left Behind requirements. Some of the things that came up in that meeting, and I think they echo the concern of a lot of lay people when it comes to education. First off, there is a recognition that an extremely high percentage of the people get into education and become teachers or administrators, do a good to very good job, and we're very happy and lucky to have them. But we also recognize there becomes times when perhaps someone's not in the right career field. And I guess one of the things that when we look at whether it's student performance or Danielson or whatever's included, and I got to believe that that's what the legislature and the discussion searching for is, when it becomes time that, someone really needs to pursue a different career path, And one of the reasons to do that, and this was from an educator, pretty much a direct quote from an educator I have a lot of respect for, who basically said, you know, any student that gets 2 consecutive years with a poor or uninterested teacher will often have their entire love for education, for their public education, you know, seriously, if not irreversibly harmed. So, I mean, there is a penalty there that's enjoyed by our students if we aren't in a position to, you know, respond to a situation where we have someone who's not getting the job done. So whenever I see something like this, I guess I'm not, you know, I'm concerned about what the specifics for the degree, but I guess what I feel that the other people that I know and what we were looking at NASB and other things like that is whether we have the tools to do something, you know, when something needs to be done. And I know that's been a frustration in this state. And I don't know that I'm not saying that this needs to change, but as we peer into the future, I think having that capability is what's being sought. So, enough from my soapbox.
Thank you. Ron?
Well, I have a similar concern. When you get under the, whatever number we use, 25%, just on the student performance category, when I look at this for all three, administrators, licensed personnel, and others, if a school is deemed to be satisfactory, then they're deemed to be satisfactory. And that's, like Steve said, it's not always true. I mean, even if we don't know a lot of things, I think we owe it to the to our students and you know, and the whole goal here of student achievement and success to begin to do some true evaluations. I don't know what the percentages are, but it can't be because the school is satisfactory, therefore everybody is satisfactory. Or in the reverse. If the school suddenly is at 2 stars, does that mean all of the teachers in their performance evaluations get an unsatisfactory? It doesn't make sense. And even I know that this is just like a placeholder going forward. The language just doesn't make a whole lot of sense if we're trying to do some kind of an evaluation.
All righty. Well, Mr. Swarzik and Mr. Reynolds, I invite you to come to the next TLC meeting, which is on the 24th of this month. 5th Street starts at 8-ish, and it's a telecast between Carson City, Elko, and Las Vegas. And many of your points have been made over the years, to be honest. And yeah, so these are not unfamiliar to my ears, and certainly not to anyone else in this room. With regard to any points that the TLC is trying to scratch their heads over, I think, Mr. Swarzik and Mr. Reynolds, you'll be glad to know that what do you do with a teacher that is highly effective? Let's say they are the superstar, and they're in a 1-star school, which we don't have any in our district. And you look at that school score, but that teacher is working his or her butt off, right, at that school X. And this is something that, why the scoring is really important and defensible in our state. And then you take another school they could be a 5-star school, and a teacher who's writing that score and probably not working, or a leader, I should say, not just teacher or leader, or both, not really working as hard as that distinguished teacher. So there's a lot of talk with the TLC with regard to how do you do that individually once we get to the nuts and bolts of this, knowing that this year is really hold harmless. That's why this validation study and the dialogue is really important across the state, because we've got to factor in that, again, going to Jamie Vollmer, that not every teacher is going to have that distinguished marked every year. I could be pregnant tomorrow, and maybe my performance, which would be a miracle, my performance would suffer. But the next year I'll be back on my game. You just never know with people's lives how they ebb and flow, and you know that from your own professions. You know, one thing could affect you for that entire year. One kid in your household, a parent, it depends on your circumstance. So there are other factors that happen. But what we're trying to do across the state, and again, I want to give Nevada some credit, is multiple measures over multiple years using multiple data points. So really, what you're looking at is a trend. So if you're looking at an individual teacher or a school, you're looking at trend data to make sure you have enough data to make a good decision. So when we're having those hard discussions, Mr. Reynolds, and trust me, we are in our district with regard to career for leaders and teachers, those discussions are necessary. They have happened, and they will probably continue to.
Laurel.
I just had a question. I wanted to clarify because, Ron, you read item 2 under student performance as being if a school receives a star rating. I read it as if the Carson City School District's aggregate, so it's the whole schools, or the whole district would apply to teachers at any other school. So, I guess that's, it's almost.
It's a placeholder.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I think that's
Yeah.
a good-
Now, this is where Brian
Very
Wallace needs to come in, whether it's 5%, 25%.
Yeah. And I think the whole problem just comes because we are trying to evaluate the individual based on the performance of a group.
And let me tell you why it's hard, because if you're looking just at straight student data, and that test has changed like it has in Nevada for the last, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5, just think of your own job. If your targets keep changing every year, and you don't know what the heck you're shooting for, and you're hoping that you're doing a good job, and you're not, having a lively discussion with your supervisor about going to a different career, that's tough to do right now in Nevada and across the nation as we look at testing across the board.
Joe?
I guess I would add I get it for this year, and I'm with you on that. It's kind of a placeholder, and I get it. But I think what makes this even more complicated, and before I get into that, I like the idea of multiple years. I mean, we do that in my industry as well. You can't take a snapshot. You have to see a trend.
Right.
But when we get into that, because a lot of things impact that trend. I mean, this year alone, I've spoken to some teachers in numerous schools, and they'll tell you, some things got off to a roaring start, other things didn't, and it's everything from technology to supplies to just general support. And if all those tools aren't in place, it puts certain teachers at a disadvantage. And so I think this whole student performance thing, it's a challenge, and I can appreciate the efforts going into it. But somehow when we get past this year, and I don't know how we do it, and I'm happy to be a part of those group meetings and whatnot, but look at how you factor all that into this in a manner that makes sense. I mean, I'm all for evaluations, and I think everybody should be held accountable, but you got to make sure everybody has all the right tools and support in place to give them the opportunities to be successful.
Absolutely. And let me echo what Brian said, with the data matrix and especially with Race at the Top and even SFA, we can pretty much echolocate every kid in our district right now, which is something not a lot of school districts can say across the nation. We are really the Harvard of Nevada, if not, anywhere else I can think of. We're doing the hard work, and we're getting it done. There's a lot of great discussions in PLCs at the district office level. I've never seen a harder working group, to be honest. And those tough discussions are really tough because, as we reflect upon what we do as educators and really at the soul of it, how we reach students, our own students, how they're learning and how we're teaching and how we're leading, it's a really hard examination, if you will, about how to do that work. And there's some things that I've got to tell you will never be defined. There's some art to doing this job. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody can be in front of 21, 30. My wife has 45 kids in her classroom in one period. Yeah, that's infernally. So there's a whole different thing you can't measure, and that's emotional intelligence. And, that's not been part of the conversation because that's too fluffy. But it is part of what we do at the heart of what we do in education.
Ron?
Well, Jose, what Steve said is that most, whether they're educators or administrators in education, are here doing a good job.
Right.
Most are doing that. But maybe, like you said, some should be in another occupation. How do we get there then with this? I mean, I know that's a discussion that's going on. So for this year, the way it's written, those that may want to be in another occupation may want to go somewhere else. I don't know, Brian, you could maybe add some things to this.
Before Brian comes up, I have to tell you, that's why Carson City is a great district to work for, because we're not in the news for those things. And let me say that again. When those conversations happen, they need to be held in a confidential, private session between usually the supervisor and supervisee, or even sometimes with the association members that I'm not privy to. So, you know, those things happen, and you're not going to hear about a lot of that in the press, but it is happening. So those tough discussions, when we need to, you know, they're being held. I just need to say that. And they're not out for that kind of broadcast, and rightfully so.
So basically, we're doing this to comply with NRS. It's something that, I don't know, we're just picking numbers. Is there a penalty if we don't do this policy, if we don't follow NRS?
Yeah, I wonder if there is too. That's a great question, and we don't have a great answer for you. We haven't received much guidance, I don't think, and I don't want to speak for Superintendent Stokes, but, you know, it's been kind of nebulous. And again, let me say, it's good that it's a little nebulous, that we're putting a lot more thought behind it, because once it becomes really codified, and I think we'll see what time will say about what we did today or the last 4 years.
I don't think there's a problem with being able to tell the legislature that we crossed the T, so to speak, but that looks kind of like what we're doing.
I guess, I mean, if it's just this hold harmless evaluation, and why are we creating a document that doesn't really even make sense? Why not just go with what we had before, with the understanding that we are going to continue to have dialogue, discussion, work through this? Because honestly, I don't think this makes a whole lot of sense. You've just pulled a number from the sky just to pull it. So why not keep it how it was and say, you know, we want to take our time on this. We don't want to just put a document together that doesn't really make sense.
Mr. Stokes, did you want to weigh in? I think he's been raising his hand here.
There's a practical piece to this that's important to note. We have 500 teachers that if we're following direction from the State Department, and if we do what they've asked us to do, which is why you have this document in front of you, we had to come up with something that would not throw our certified staff into complete uncertainty. I mean, if they're wondering whether or not 50% of their next year's evaluation was going to be based on student performance, and maybe you are a school librarian, you know, how does that impact you? And so we tried to come up with a very bland way to meet the intent of the law and the direction that we've received from the State Department, because I really don't want to be in front of a Senate hearing panel asking why we refused to follow the direction of the state superintendent. The state superintendent in our last meeting said he anticipates going to the legislature in the next session and advocating against some of the law that has been passed that has to do with teacher and administrator evaluation, for a lot of the reasons that you so astutely have recognized here tonight. So I don't want to say that what we're doing is without effort or cause, but we are following the direction that we've been given by state leaders. And we believe that we have thoughtfully and collaboratively done this in such a way that we have the support of the Teachers Association and also the Administrators Association. And yeah, we hoped to not have any teachers not be able to focus on teaching and doing their job because they were worried about what this policy might mean. And Jose tonight has already received some question because he sent out an email earlier today saying this is going to be on the board agenda, and it will be one more time before it takes the step of being policy, which we've written this so that it will sunset at the end of this school year. So that we're hoping that the TLC will have all of their pieces together so that we can either move forward with what they're recommending, or the legislators will actually change the law and maybe bring some more sanity back to this whole process, because as it is, it's nuts. And we'd be the first to tell you that we agree with everything that you're saying, but we also feel like there's this other piece that we're expected to do by our state leaders.
But wouldn't it send a bigger message if, if we make the decision not to do a policy, then I think that we should go to that Senate hearing and tell them why we didn't do this. Because to me, all it is doing is getting it in an uproar and following directions that legislators don't understand, and they haven't fulfilled their position to get their stuff done. And I understand the state superintendent is doing what he's doing for that reason. But as a board, if there's no penalty, if we're not going to get penalized and they're not going to say, oh, you're not getting any funding, that would be different. But if there's no penalty, I think it's time, if we're just making up random numbers, I'd rather just not have a policy until we actually have numbers. Yes, Mr. Stokes.
Madam President, I serve at your pleasure. I know you've heard that before. And I had to bring this to you tonight based on the direction that I'd received from the State Department. If you direct me to do as you just stated and will sit beside me, we will happily take this to higher courts.
Yeah, let me interrupt that. I think the point that Mr. Stokes made a moment ago, though, given that probably the most real effect that our policy decision would have would be on our own people right now, because it doesn't sound like anything we decide is going to influence the legislature or anybody else. And I think Brian's going to add information to concur with that. If this is something, much like you said, that allows our people to be happy moving forward through the school year, then we can worry about messages in a different way. That'd be my suggestion.
Candace?
And I would like to hear from Mr. Wallace, but again, if we don't adopt the policy, then there's no change. Staff would be evaluated as they're evaluated today, so there'd be no harm. It would be keeping the status quo. But I would like to hear from Mr. Wallace when convenient.
We'll have Joe talk, and then we'll have Mr. Wallace.
All right, let me get off the stage.
It'll be
Wallace,
quick. I agree with what I've heard up here. And, but my question is, since this is kind of a hold harmless, vague set of policies, there's 3 policies, but they all say exactly the same thing with the exception of 3 different titles.
Right.
Can we just have one vague policy instead of 3?
No. They do, yeah. All right, so,
Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Wallace?
you, Mr. Delphin.
If you need me, I'm around.
We know where to find you.
Brian Wallace, OCA President, Teachers Union. Thank you very much, Madam President and the board, for welcoming back, and Mr. Stokes. The association is not going to argue with you about whether or not you want to pass this. Our stance is solely on principle right now, that when the superintendents were asked earlier this year if we were ready for NEPF, including the 50% piece of the student data, every superintendent within the state of Nevada, all 17, came together and unified and said no. And the IFC heard that resoundingly. Each time we've gone through this, the IFC and them have listened. What I'm asking for tonight on behalf of every single teacher out there, member or not, is send a message but it's a message as such that's still a harmless message to both the IFC, the legislature, NDE, and the superintendent of schools for the state, that you also believe we are not ready. There is no penalty we are aware of. They're not going to revoke funding. There's no teeth in this. Actually, in the memo the superintendent of schools for the state sent out warns districts to be very careful with what you create, because they will not judge your policy on if it's defensible legally. That if you cross a line that crosses our current evaluation model or our contract, you are in charge and you will suffer the legal consequences, not NDE or the legislature. So they're not even willing to help you defend anything you create if you haven't already vetted it through your own legal processes. Knowing that Clark County has pushed for 5%, Douglas, our neighbor to the south and probably the most comparable, is going with 5%. Washoe is going to do what you were suggesting, Madam President, which is nothing. They're extremely happy with their evaluation model. They've been flying it for almost 3 full years now. It does have a small component of student data, and they're willing to stand before that committee and be on the hot seat. They're also willing to do that because, just as Dr. Delphine pointed out, between the Washoe model of evaluation and Carson Cities, they are ranked 1 and 2, if not ranked 1 and 1, when you look at the whole state. That ours ranked high enough that NEPF is actually almost a mirror of our current evaluation model that was teacher developed, that was staff developed, that was district developed collaboratively. And that Washoe's right there with us. And we borrowed components of Washoe's when Eagle Valley did the SIG grant, which is why I don't want to do one more thing, but knowing Eagle Valley, that staff has been through the SIG grant, we can handle going through the validation study piece. That we're going to get really valid information from those staff members, because many sat there that went through this. What I would argue is the basic of principals and staff morale. Go for the 5%. Make it 95% 5%. Stand with your other districts that you've already stood with and complete the policy and see what happens. The worst thing that I can personally see through the association that happens is NDE stamps reject on it. They will reject yours. They will reject Clark's. They will reject Douglas's. They're going to reject Washoe's. And I'm sure after I go to Vegas this weekend for the NSA Board of Directors meeting, I'll know what the other rules and where they stand on it also very soon, if they're willing to also come together unified and continuing to send that message. We are not ready. Going to Trustee Reynolds and Trustee Swarzak's comments about where we're at currently with evaluations, none of us want to shirk responsibility whatsoever or accountability. As a union president, and saying teacher accountability is always political dynamite. I risk stepping on a big landmine on that piece. But because that Danielson model is so clearly written and thoroughly researched, and because the majority of site administrators within the Carson City School District use it appropriately, most of us can confidently stand before you as our employers and say, teachers are truly evaluated. And if there is an issue, you have made a commitment through the Race to the Top grant, through SIG grants, through SFA, through coaches, cognitive coaching, through instructional assistance, through every aspect out there, that if a teacher needs assistance, it is actually provided within this district. We have been so far ahead of that curve, it's not even, it puts the rest of the other districts slightly to shame. The amount of assistance we can provide a teacher. And that if they do need that career change, it does happen in this district. It actually does happen. Evaluations reflect it. But they get the assistance. We know colleges do not fully prepare them for what we do. My student teacher last year was no way prepared ready to hit the road with one-to-one technology. Then turn around and implement Mastery Connect, then turn around and look at learning targets, then turn around and do learning guides, and then they don't teach that at UNR College of Education. But yet, from everything we've put in place and all the dedication every single person within this room, this city, and this district has put forth, teachers get the help they need. If administrators under NRS 391 do their due diligence as evaluators. And that's that key. The association has worked very hard with the district, especially with HR, that if a problem is noticed, whether on the administrative side or on the teacher side, that both parties sit down. We don't even grieve anything any longer. We're able to sit down, go through mediation with one another, cognitive coaching that we've all been through, and actually work it out and say, what can we put in place on a plan 3 of improvement for a teacher? What do we have available through the district currently? So that way we can move that teacher forward for the betterment of the students and the betterment of that teacher to be proud of the craft they're currently practicing. So going back to Trustee Reynolds and Suarez, I really think we are doing true evaluations. The student data piece is just another curveball and I don't understand why to want to nail us to the wall, basically. And the way the legislative session wrote this in 2011, I'm really curious and working on finding out if the interim finance committee, especially Debbie Smith, if she really knew what that NRS entailed when they said, yes, the interim finance committee can delay this. Did they realize it also included the component that now each of you are in charge of handing us student performance data as a significant part of our evaluations? So again, the solidarity piece, especially in light of, and this is the most disheartening thing, as was mentioned, that my email box is full because specialists are scared. PE teachers, culinary teachers, CTE teachers, speech pathologists, counselors, et cetera, et cetera. What does their student data look like? We have created a whole harmless system, and the district deserves a large amount of credit for looking out for the wellness of this staff currently on this student data piece. But the disappointment comes from, again, the regional trainers that came and visited Eagle Valley and other secondary schools, stood before us on our second day of school and said, no student data will be in your evaluations this year. None. All the hands went up. Well, what about the 50%? None. It is status quo. Until this memo from NDE came out that said, oh, by the way, that's not true. Even the state's own trainers, who are supposed to inform all of us about NEPF, was not aware of this NRS. So I would ask through the association and on behalf of every teacher, member or not, stand together in principle with other districts, lower that bar, see what NDE will actually say.
Questions for Mr. Wallace?
Just a quick question. Does our current model, the Danielson method, does that include some percentage of student data performance currently?
It does not. Danielson model that we currently have was implemented approximately 2001 as a pilot and 2002 fully to everybody. It does not include a student performance / data piece. And that's because even in 2002, there was no way to track that. We hadn't gone as far. Well, it's not true. All of us as teachers truly track student data, whether we say we do or not. We do. We really look at that performance. Was it in such a way that it was truly accessible to be measured in a fair, equitable, due process way? No.
Ron?
Okay. I'm back what Lynette said. You know, we've got something good in place. Why don't we have the qualifying paragraph? That's your beginning paragraph. We don't have all the information, but we have a solid recognized evaluation system in place. That would make more sense. Therefore, we, as a school district, are not going to be moving at this time to present something that is going to be rejected and is kind of absurd on its face. I don't know, that doesn't make me feel too comfortable. I don't think it would make any of our teachers feel comfortable. So, anyway, I'm going to ask you, though, as the one who's intimately involved with the current evaluation system, if it is rated as number 1 with Washoe County or whatever, any other school district, okay, at this time, I mean, what is your position? I mean, would you, I'm just going to ask you you know about the current NRS. Is there any problem with staying with the current evaluation system?
The current, no, sir, there is not, trustee. And in wanting to meet the NRS, as Mr. Stokes said, we want to meet it. And I do not, you are hands down one of the best boards to work with within the state. Just, you are. And none of you need to sit, unless you really want to, sit before an education subcommittee and explain to them, along with Mr. Stokes, and I'm more than willing to tag along, to explain to them why you chose not to even abide by state law. Again, all I'm asking for through the association is just lower the numbers so when NDE looks at it and they see Clark went 95.5, Douglas went 95.5, Washow's ignoring it, that they see that districts are continuing to communicate, superintendents are continuing to communicate in pushing back on this. If you wish, as a board, of course, to just go the route of, and deep down personally as a teacher, removing the union hat, I would say ignore it. But I don't think that's in the best interest of this district currently.
Lynette?
Well, I guess I just wanted to ask Mr. Stokes, because, I mean, this is a serious discussion, and it would be really easy just to say what I had said before, that, let's just keep with our system. I want to know, are there consequences, though, if we say we're going to just keep this first paragraph, and we're not going to do 5%, we're not going to do anything because it's hold harmless? But you obviously, I mean, to come up with what you came up with, can you give us a little bit more information maybe to make it clear? Because I can see that you're looking nervous and.
I've been told I never look nervous. But thank you for the opportunity to speak, and as we appreciate Brian's work and understand his perspective. And I'm just going to turn to Mr. Pavlakis just to share for a good reason. There are some statutory words that I think you'll appreciate in regard to this expectation.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. The language of the statutes doesn't make this optional. The statutes pretty clearly say at least 3 times that the Board of Trustees shall adopt a policy, shall adopt, after consultation with the interested parties. So it's not optional. And if you want, my legal advice to each and every member of the board is to not take the position that you're not going to follow the statutory requirement that you shall adopt a policy. If you disagree with the policy, there are means by which you can voice that objection. You can authorize Mr. Stokes to go to the legislature, to go to the Department of Education, to file, if you wanted to file a petition in court, you could do any number of things, but just saying we don't agree with this stop sign law and we're not going to follow it, I don't think is the correct course to take. What I think you can do under subsection 3 of the teacher statute and under subsection 4, I think it was 4 of the administrator statute, subsection 2 of the administrator statute, is that it's up to you to determine what is a significant portion of the evaluation. What you have before you is a proposal that 25% of the evaluation would be based on student data, student-related data. Mr. Wallace has indicated that other districts have determined that 5% is a significant portion. I would ask that when you make, I would request that you do entertain a policy, and that when you adopt the policy, that you make the determination that you believe that whatever percentage you adopt is a significant portion of the evaluation. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
thank you.
Ron?
Mr. Pavlakis, when it said that every school district shall, was there the language in there in the statute as it exists that it would be 50%?
No, not in this particular statute. And as it was interpreted by Mr. Archiaga through the Department of Education.
It's kind of hard to argue with Mr. Pavlakis when he says we shall.
It was fun to try.
It was fun, yeah. That 13-year-old in me came out for a few minutes. But, but no, I mean, we want to do what we're obligated to do, and I can respect everybody's position. Mr. Stokes brought up a good point early on that we want to, and I apologize if I misquote what you said, but we want to do something that gives our teachers an idea where we're going. We don't leave them in this gray area, essentially. But I think any percent, I think a lot of the teachers are kind of nervous about this, and I can't speak for them, but I just think if I was a teacher, 25% when we really don't know what it means would concern me quite a bit. I'd be a bit nervous about it, and I don't know that this would clear the air for me. I don't know what the percentage should be, but I would just say, without being ridiculous, I would like to see something lower that, if 5%, if we think it's politically the right thing to do to stand with our other districts and say 5% is a number, I'm okay with that, but I'm kind of thinking, if I had to pick a number, I was kind of, before we started this whole thing, thinking 10, 15% sounded better to me, just because we're showing, I want to show our teachers that we're conscientious of the concerns they have, and knowing that we can't define what really this all means yet. I think throwing people are going to see 25%, and in my opinion, they're going to say, boy, once it's on paper, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I think that's what a lot of people are going to come back with.
And just to add to the conversation, folks, when Clark says 5%, it means something coming from that district a while ago, that when you look at the example I showed you, a really high-performing teacher in a low-performing school who is working her butt off, they can transfer so easily the following year to a higher-performing school. So there's a disincentive there, if you will, in a big county like Clark, where they know that if they charge up the numbers, if you will, they'll shift. And they do every year in Clark County. I can tell you, there's a lot of movement within staff. They even have something called open transfer period, because there's so many teachers that transfer between 300 schools in Clark County. So I have to tell you that's part of my fear. And with any law or language or policy or reg, whatever you call it, there's some unintended consequences that only time will tell. So again, let me throw my kudos to Nevada in going slowly, even though they've done a lot of work already compared to other states. And, it's a good thing being a poor state, because we know we can't afford the legal fees. But at the same time, it's good that we've got really good thinking people. And let me tell you, the folks on TLC have really done a great job. And there's Charla Hale, who's a school board member in Douglas County, who's been very vocal, who's said the same things many of you have said with regard to accountability, teacher quality. The same stat, Mr. Reynolds, that you have said has been said in TLC many times. We're aware of it in education. I went through Catholic education. My folks, put me through that. I went through a lot of nuns, and I'm still a survivor. So, I can tell you that, that said, we understand the impact, but also I know that there are fears out there that may be not real if we look at the perception and how we form this policy. And I agree with Mr. Pavlakis. I think we can spend our time more effectively, teach our kids in a more effective manner. With all the great initiatives for making Carson City School District great, not just with Race to the Top, but with the momentum we've had in the last 4 years. I mean, my gosh, I don't want to stop that progress at all.
Steve?
I'm gonna suggest that we do the 5%. And the reason I'm going to suggest that is actually because the less percentage that we make this have any value, the more weight it leaves on the rest of the evaluation, which is really where we want the weight anyway. So I don't think 25% of the evaluation should be just freely given, and that's what we'd be doing. So I guess
There's no motion.
there is no motion.
No,
That's going to be read
discussion.
twice. Anyway, I just put out the fact that I would strongly suggest that we stand on the 5% as a recommendation to our staff.
Candace?
Just, what would be the next steps? I mean, after, what happens over the next couple of months with all of this? I mean, what's going to happen before next year comes around and all that?
You know, that's a great question. I think the next TLC meeting, the next two, will be very telling. With regard to the NEPF, we now know what the rules of engagement are, what the standards and indicators, what we want the work to look like. Now we have to measure it. So we need the instruments and tools to be able to, what we currently do in Danielson is have our forms ready to go, not because they're forms, but they're action items that we do for evaluating teachers and leaders. So I know that those are in the hopper. And they will be forthcoming. Those are the next series of steps, is actually what the how looks like in real life. I would like to propose that I proposed to Mr. Stokes earlier this year that I would supervise one principal from every level, just so I can kind of shadow, if you will, what the NEPF language looks like and feels like with a real live scenario. So I could test it out as a supervisor with a principal and see what they think. Because really, that is the validation study. Does it really make sense when we look at the instruments and tools and all the parts and pieces of the evaluation? Is it clear, just like our learners, our students, is it clear to them what's expected of them? And if it is, great. If it isn't, we need to vet out that language and make sure that it's understandable. So that's the next steps. And that's the exciting part, actually.
Yep. Lynette?
So, Dr. Delphin, I just want to make sure, because I was trying to research this Danielson's framework. Is it Charlotte Danielson's framework for teaching? Is that what you guys use?
It is,
okay.
yes.
Thanks.
Can I tell you, too, that I heard her speak at one of my teacher effectiveness meetings, and she said, you know, when I thought of this evaluation, it was never to measure student performance. It was about teacher quality. So most of the evals that were made back in the day were about teacher quality, not necessarily measured against a teacher. It was to improve them. So student outcomes is partly a DC kind of move, as DC tried to mirror business language, you know, with performance targets. We tried to do the same thing with educators, with performance targets. So there's a whole, I don't want to go through that whole history, but it started with DC and the Bush administration, and then it evolved, if you will.
Okay, so I think the basic consensus is we'd like the second reading to come back with the 95-5. And I will go to the legislature when they come and tell them why this is so stupid, why we think it's so stupid, even if I'm not on the board at the time. The other thing to keep in mind is when we change the evaluation to stuff, it also hurts us recruiting teachers. And it's so hard to recruit right now, too, that if we're having a 75-25 and another district has 95-5, you kind of wonder where they might be thinking of going there, too. So that's another component, I think, that needs to be looked at.
And I just wanted to offer one more item just from me personally as being a staff member of this district, that on the current model, if any of you would like to sit down, I am more than willing to open my past evaluations up and walk you through the framework, walk you through the narratives. I'm very lucky to have, she's now principal at Borderwood, Karen Sims, to have done my evaluations in past years. She's extremely thorough especially because she was the department chair for social studies at the high school, which was always a little scary for me. And so, you know, her expertise versus mine and her comments, and she was just a straight shooter. Last year was Mr. Conley's first time doing mine, I think was his first time in doing mine when Mrs. Sims moved on. And again, just wonderfully written narratives. And I think if you got an opportunity to see one, you would see what your site administrators are really currently working with it. And that even if some of us are deemed satisfactory, and then within the other 4 ratings we can achieve, such as proficient or distinguished, that there is always room for improvement, and that those site administrators generally do find a way to say, you need to challenge yourself one more level because we think you can do this, and that your students will continue to grow this much more, and that you can hit all the other buzzwords like closing the achievement gap and et cetera, if you just continue to push yourself as an educator. Secondly, on behalf of every single educator, thank you very much for taking everything into consideration this evening. Your time and dedication is definitely recognized.
And so is yours, Mr. Wallace. We appreciate you staying till 10. When I looked at this agenda, I thought it was going to be a short meeting. I don't know where I was thinking. We do have some public comment, though. If you'd like to come up, state your name for the record, John.
My name is John Appolito. Madam President, Superintendent, what time is it? Superintendent Stokes, honorable board members. I'm going to give you just a brief preview of some of the things I'll talk about on Thursday night. Please know the federal government shelled out $612 million to ensure that 47 states had the exact same data collection system. Nevada took $10 million of that money. Now we have the Nevada statewide longitudinal data system. This data that we collect here can be shared with any state. It'll be made available to the federal government and to private companies like Pearson Education. Some of this data is personal. We don't know the implications of having all this data out there. What we do know is there have been a lot of data breaches just in the first half of the year. These one-to-one devices kind of expedite that process because you're also sharing that data directly with either Apple, Microsoft, or Google, most likely. So the one-to-one devices are problematic. I just spent 4 hours at the Nevada Department of Education, my wife and I, to go over the data they have on my 4 kids. There's a lot of bad data. The biggest thing that we discovered, and some of it we don't even know what's in there, and the State Department couldn't really help us. My older kids have over 30 addresses on record. We've never moved. The Department of Education says, well, we're sorry, that information is really not important. For my son that wants to go to Stanford or MIT, when they see that he moved 30 times since he was a child, that might be important. So we're not even sure if we can correct that. The SBAC and Park, those are the entities that have to make that data available to the federal government and everybody and their brother. And this is very problematic. Of the 42 states still in Common Core, only 21 are still in the federal testing, the federal subsidized testing, which is SBAC or Park. 42 states in Common Core, only 21 still in the federal testing. And there are people smarter than me who think the whole purpose of Common Core is the data collection. Remember, the Common Core is done. They're on to changing the SAT, changing the AP classes. The data collection is critical. Ben Swan, he's a reporter from the Midwest. He's got a good article on his website. It's old, but it's titled, "The Most Dangerous Domestic Spying Program is Common Core." The interim legislative committee on education, I was there when they voted, and the percentage you guys are looking for is 40%. That's what they voted. I don't know if it's mandatory, but that's what the legislature is looking for. A little bit of history. Back in June, the Washington Post wrote an article at the beginning of June about, and it was a long article that went through the history of Common Core and who was involved. 2 days after that article was published, both the National Review Online and Huffington Post wrote articles requesting full congressional hearings on the federal government and Bill Gates' involvement in Common Core. Remember, Bill Gates has spent at least $200 million, probably closer to over $2 billion, to push this program. Right after the Huffington Post and National Review Online wrote those articles, Within a couple of weeks, Bill Gates said, you know what? We shouldn't evaluate the teachers this year on these standards. We should give it one extra year. In other words, next school year, not this year. Within 2 months after that, Arnie Duncan fell in line. So in August, Arnie Duncan said states don't have to evaluate teachers based on the student data. So I don't know where Nevada is or why they're pushing this, but Arnie Duncan said we don't have to do it this year. This whole thing is experimental. It's not just the standards, or it's not just the, testing the teachers, or what are we going to do? It's the standards themselves. These standards, they're not research-based, they've never been tested, and they're rolled out, forced on 45 states all at the same time. Only 42 states are still in it, and a lot of states are having trouble getting out. The whole thing is problematic, so hopefully I'll see you guys on Thursday. Thursday night, 6:30 at the Brick. Thank you.
Thank you. It's next Thursday, though, right?
Next Thursday.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving on. Approval of consent agenda.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, H, J, and K as submitted.
Second.
Second by Laurel. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Moving on. Number 14, request for future agenda items. Anyone? Lynette?
I was just wondering if we could do our parent appreciation night that we've done in the past. I know it's in November, and last year we were so busy with other issues, and I'm just hoping that we can find time to do it in November again. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's better than saving it till the end. Any other ones?
You know, it's just crossed my mind. I see Brian's still here. Maybe we need to go to an evaluation system, kind of new wave reality show, and they can vote. They can vote people off the.
Or we'll do the star.
They can vote people out of the school, if they don't. I mean,
we'll have our seats
leave it up to them.
Watching turn it into that, it could be us next on the island. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, and remember, Thursday, 5:15,